Okay, I think we're ready to
I
begin.
think we're good. I think we're good. It says the webinar is now streaming live.
Yeah.
You want to do roll call, Lynn?
Yes, they do. Okay. Mayor Bontempo,
Here.
Ms. Weber,
Here.
Mr. Critelli, not here. Dr. Pascucci,
Here.
Mr. Santana.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United States of America
and to
and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty,
and
justice.
justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Honor our troops both home and abroad who protect us tirelessly each and every day. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Township Committee meeting on Tuesday, July 28th. Packed-filled agenda. We are going to switch some of the agenda items around tonight, and we're going to pull the ordinances forward. So first, we're going to do ordinance 2020-06, followed by 2020-07, followed by 2020-08. When did you want to read?
Certainly. Hearing on ordinance 2020-06, it's an ordinance amending Chapter 30, Development Regulations of the Code of the Township of Holmdel by creating a new Section 30-135A entitled AF-MF2, Affordable Housing Multifamily Zone 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This was introduced previously, correct, Wendy?
Oh, that's correct.
Okay. So, council, you want to provide any overview on this ordinance?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the Township Committee. This is a zoning overlay ordinance that relates to the township's affordable housing obligations. I believe your special counsel, Andy Bayer, who handles the affordable housing, is joining us. I don't know if he's been added just yet, but he will be available to answer any substantive questions you may have on this.
So any questions from Township Committee members?
None.
None being said, open up public.
Yeah, I guess procedurally, Mayor, I'll just outline for the benefit of those observing the meeting, with the agenda being taken in the order that the mayor expressed. There are 3 ordinances up for final adoption and public hearing tonight. The mayor has moved those forward on the agenda, so there will be public hearings associated with those adoptions. And then following the public hearing, the committee may proceed with adoption of those ordinances. And then after that, the committee will return to the consent agenda and the other items on the agenda.
Good. So with no comments from the committee?
Actually, Mayor, can we see if
Andy, we need
Mr.
Andy.
Bayer is here before we open it up, the public hearing, just so that he's available in case there's any.
Is he in queue to come in?
I don't see him yet.
I don't see him yet.
I'm looking for him.
Okay, I just spoke with Andy, and he's signing in now. Okay, there he is. Andy's
Okay.
with us.
I made it.
Okay,
And so we introduced the first ordinance at the front end of the meeting, 2020-06.
Okay, Mayor.
Any comments you want to make before you open up the public, Andy?
Sure. This is the ordinance related to the township's affordable housing plan. As part of its plan, the township has approved the settlement agreement in 2018 and then 2019 with Fair Share Housing Center, which included a site known as the Middle Road site. It's about 4 acres, and it's going to provide, there's a 100% affordable housing project slated for the site that will provide the township, there'll be 50 units, but provide the township with 100 affordable housing credits towards its overall affordable housing obligation. The site, this site was included in, has been in the township's affordable housing plan since 2008, when the township was before COA. Then it was 60 units, now it's 50. It was included in the settlement agreements, the number of settlement agreements we had with Fair Share Housing Center. There have been 2 court hearings called fairness hearings in this matter, where ultimately the court has entered 2 orders approving the township settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center. It found that this site, the Middle, and all the sites in the township's affordable housing plan have met the COA criteria for developability. And the court entered an order which requires the township to rezone this site to allow for the 50-unit affordable housing project. And so what you have tonight is the public hearing on this ordinance. There is, as I said, there's a court order in effect which basically says that, for the township to get a judgment of compliance and repose, protecting it from builder's remedy litigation, it needs to be, this ordinance would need to be adopted among other affordable housing matters which are on your agenda tonight. So that's the background to this ordinance.
Thank you, Andy. I keep forgetting I'm on mute.
You're welcome, Mayor.
So with that being said, we will open up for public comment. Come in one at a time, let in by the clerk. I ask that before you speak, you state your name and full address, and you'll have up to 3 minutes for your statement, question, remarks, etc.
Mayor, just to clarify, this is public comment on this ordinance only, correct?
Correct. Only
Thank you.
on ordinance 2020-06, as Andy just outlined, as what it represents.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first person that we have is James Gorman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your comment about,
Excuse me, can you just please state your name and address for the record?
sure, my name is James Gorman. I'm an attorney. I represent Holmdel Township. My business address is 1129 Broad Street in Shrewsbury. Can you see me on the video? No? I don't know why that is. Let me just click that on. I don't know why. Is there a button on the bottom that can do that?
No, we don't do video of speakers.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you did say I'm limited to 3 minutes. I don't think that's correct, and I'm not going to be limited to 3 minutes. So let me address one issue. The first issue is notice. This ordinance was introduced in February. It was sent out by email by the clerk to the clerk in Holmdel Township. The statute allows for email, and the clerk did so. I don't know whether or not it was sent out to people within 200 feet as required when you do not have a re-examination report. On this one here, no notice was given. This has been carried without any type of adjournment, without any type of notice. I just happen to look at your website every day to see when it's on. Was any notice given to Hazlet Township? If so, there has to be confirmation of that. I asked the clerk.
Mayor, my suggestion is you hear all of Mr. Gorman's comments and then we could respond at the end.
Yeah,
No, I
Mr.
think
Ryan, the
With
process
with all due respect, it's jurisdictional.
With all due respect, Mr. Gorman, it's not your meeting, so you can
That's
make
true.
any comments you like, and then the committee will proceed how it likes.
Okay, so at this point in time, there has been no notice given to Hazlet Township. You are without jurisdiction to continue this tonight. In addition, no notice, as far as I know, was given to the people within 200 feet. That's required when you don't have a comprehensive master plan reexamination report. I know you did a master plan reexamination report in in December. If you could see me, I could hold it up and I could show you, but you're all familiar with your own documents. That master plan reexamination report was not comprehensive. It dealt only with the properties to be rezoned for your Mount Laurel plan. You did another, your planning board did. Your planning board did another master plan reexamination report in March of this year, adopted in April. That one is far more comprehensive. And in that one there, Jennifer Beam, your planner for this, says that, she says, however, the reexamination report in 2019 was only dealing with the affordable housing obligation. Therefore, they've undertaken this reexamination report evaluating the goals and objectives. Okay. There are cases, Mr. Collins, Mr. Bear, fully familiar with them. But the cases say quite succinctly that what you need in order to avoid the 200 foot notice, it has to be a comprehensive total redo of your master plan. I could go into the cases, I could cite them, but in the spirit of time, I won't. This does not satisfy that test. This was just a couple of different properties, and you should have sent out notices to everybody within 200 feet. I don't think that has been done. So you fail on notice on two issues. Now let me turn to the substance of this. The township has made numerous errors in its effort to adopt this ordinance. But primarily, the biggest problem you have is that this property is located in the PA2 suburban planning district. I've confirmed that with the director of state planning. I've confirmed it with the mapping director at DEP. I have sent those emails to your council. You are fully aware of it. You're on notice of that. Now that's important because it's in CAFRA. And in CAFRA, in a PA1 metropolitan zone, you're allowed 80% coverage. In PA2 suburban, which this property is in, you're allowed 30%, just 30. Your ordinance that you're considering tonight has the error in there that this property is in both of those planning areas. That's not true. In fact, Jennifer Beam, when she did the December 2019 master plan, in there she got this part right. She said this property is entirely in the suburban PA2 planning area. That means 30% coverage. That means you can't fit 50 units in here. So that's an issue. I think it's a big issue, and I don't know how it happened this way. I don't know how it went down this road. I know we went back and forth with your council arguing about this. I got emails from both the director of state planning and from the director of mapping at DEP to confirm what I just told you. And I have provided them to you, and they are a part of the court certification that has been submitted. And I sent them earlier to your clerk, asked her to distribute to them. We can go through and find them in there if you want to go through that. But in any event, this is 30% coverage. Your ordinance says 75% overall coverage, but then it defines in two different areas. It says 30% coverage in the PA2 and 80% in the PA1 metropolitan. But you don't have any PA1 metropolitan, and you can't fit them in here. The concept plans that have been submitted by the Walters Group shows a significant, almost total coverage in the PA and what they thought was the PA2, PA1 metropolitan, but that doesn't exist. So this doesn't fit. We have a report from our planner, also submitted as part of the package I sent earlier to your clerk, which goes through. When you go through it all, this site fits in the 30s. Hazlitt's not here saying don't build on this site. We're not saying don't put affordable housing on this site. We're saying put what fits. In order to be affordable, to be developable, one of the planning objectives, it has to conform to all the state plans. and has to conform to CAFRA. This clearly does not, and that's an objective fact that your counsel may disagree with me on that, but we'll find out in court when it's presented to a judge. But I've sent you all the emails. If you want to ignore what they say, so be it. But that's not the case, and I'll prove it to you as we go forward if need be. But I'm asking you tonight just to understand what the problem is, understand what you're facing. So in order to be approvable, the site suitability test that your planner prepared, it says it has to be consistent with all regulations of all agencies with jurisdiction. This is not. Okay, let's go on. In the beginning, when you zone this for 50, and again, you're not adjusting this as this site becomes more constrained. In the beginning, you use your tax map data. You thought it was 4.85 acres. It's not. There's a survey, 3.9. You lost 20%. You didn't adjust the number of units. You just squeezed them in. This site also has about a half acre of wetlands. So in total, this site is about 30% of the land area on this site gets lost, either because of the acreage on a survey and because of wetlands. Now, you guys can disagree with all these, and I'm asking you to understand what we're saying and open your eyes and ears to what your real problem is here. There's wetlands on the property. So this is down by 30%. You want to reduce the site by 30%? That goes into what our planner is saying. You can fit, 2/3 of it. You can fit in the 30s on this site. You can't fit 50. This thing also has a 5-foot buffer. 5-foot buffer on the parking lot butting up against the hazard residence. I dare say that if this property was surrounded by Holmdel residents, I dare say that if you didn't own it, you bought this for $1.5 million. If you didn't own it, a developer owned this, you would be beating up a developer left and right saying, move it back, make it smaller. It's in a CAFRA zone. It's only 30% coverage. You'd be all over this, making it smaller. But because you own it, you have your own interest involved. Because you own it, because you paid 1.5 on the mistaken belief of what areas it was in, how big it was, you made a mistake. Not my problem, your problem. I'm telling you, when you're in a hole, stop digging. This fits 30-something units, not 50. Let's go on. You wouldn't, you're cramming these things in. You wouldn't do that if it was in Holmdel. This is not in the spirit of Mount Laurel. Spirit of Mount Laurel is you have ratables, you have jobs, you have industry, you have whatever. And by the way, you do have that. You have Bellworks. And Bellworks was required to provide 35 units. And you didn't make them do it. You just didn't make them do it. Excuse me. I provided a copy of your agreements with Bellworks. I sent them in, and I want to go through some of them now briefly, if I can. So what happens is that, and everybody can scoff, I understand, smirk if you want. You're all being recorded, so I would ask, it's hard not to smirk. I get it. But you have a redevelopment agreement between the township and with Somerset. It's recorded. I found a copy of it. It's the 2014. I won't bore you with the details on it. But what it says, in relevant part, it says that the affordable housing obligation is controlled by a different document. The affordable housing obligation for this site is controlled by a 2013 agreement. Bear with me, I didn't think you were going to do this in that order, so let me get my notes. All right, so sorry for the interruption there. I had to find the right legal pad. In the 2014 agreement, I'm going to quote what it says. Affordable housing issues are addressed by separate agreement between the parties, entitled Affordable Housing Agreement, dated July 16, 2013. Attached here to is Exhibit 9 and incorporated by reference. It goes on to say the township looks solely to the redeveloper for satisfaction of any affordable housing obligations for this property as specified in the redevelopment plan, and that no portion of the project shall be conditioned upon the satisfaction of affordable housing obligations provided in the redevelopment plan, except as required in the attached affordable housing agreement. So what you have said and what you've agreed to with Bellworks and Zucker and Somerset is that the affordable housing agreement from 2013 is controlling. And that agreement says very clearly. And at that time, you were contemplating that it was going to be an assisted living facility. I understand, presumably inside the Bell Works facility itself. But in that agreement, you provided that it's a formula for how many units, but as I understand it, it comes out to be about 34, 35 units that he now owes you. In that agreement, it says it's going to be satisfied with the production of units, not money, units, on-site or off-site. You were intending it to be assisted living. Turned out that didn't work for whatever reason. In the agreement, it specifically says that if he's going to put it, let's see, in any event, whatever it is, there's a long paragraph, I won't go into it. In any event, the housing obligation shall be satisfied not later than 7 years from the date of this agreement. That agreement was dated July 16, 2013. We're past 7 years by a week or two. You haven't made them do it. You have an opportunity. You had an opportunity. You may still have the opportunity to provide affordable housing at Bell. You didn't do it. It's the only area, one of the only areas, I think maybe Prue, the old Prue, Vonage may have sewers. I'm not sure about that. But Bell has sewers. You know that. I know that. And you have fought hard to keep sewers away from the other side of Holmdel. I lived there for over 30 years. I understand. I know where the bodies are buried. But you didn't want any affordable housing on that side of the slope. You had the opportunity to put them at Bell. You still may have the opportunity to put them at Bell. And Bell had an obligation to provide them. And you didn't make them do it. You didn't want their project over there disturbed. You said, no, let's not put it there. Let's squeeze them in behind a pizza parlor and a dance studio over in this little sliver of property that's been reduced in size between wetlands, survey, and state regulations. And you don't care. Hecker, you want to get 50 in there. You don't care. I've been pointing these errors out. I'm glad to have the opportunity to address it to the governing body. Hazlitt's not looking for a war here. Just reduce it. Just make it fit. Make it fit with state regs. And if Bell owes you more units, take their money and go put them up someplace else. They're giving you $5 million in your spending plan, which you didn't adopt yet tonight, and which I have comments on when we get there. In your spending plan, it talks about this payment in lieu. Yeah, it's not in your agreements. It's in the redevelopment plan. Yes, it is. But the redevelopment plan is only like an ordinance. That's not what Zucker, Somerset is required to do. They're required to do what's in their agreements. And their agreements require that these units be built by them by now. It doesn't provide for payment in lieu. And you still have the opportunity to put them over in Bell Labs. If you're short, put them over there. If you're short, put them someplace else. Just don't squeeze them in this site. I've sent you the emails that we got through an open request with Mr. Del Duca. And in essence, he's saying, well, you know what? It's kind of tight, but we'll squeeze them in here. We'll bump them up against these houses in Hazlitt. Would you like that? Would you do that to your residents? No. You're just squeezing it in here because you're on a path and you have blinders on. And you're going to fit it in here no matter what. That's my comment. I have McKinley Mertz, who I think is available as well. She's our planner. She did the report. We can have her talk. I think Mr. Glacken, the mayor in Hazlitt, is also on. I can't tell in this setup. I don't know who else is waiting in the waiting room. I don't know who else has their hand raised. But those are the comments I want to make on the adoption of this ordinance. And I'm saying you've waited so long to get this done, and you're still not getting it right. You've had time, you've had opportunity, and you're still not getting it right. Why don't you get it right? Why don't you recognize what the state is telling you? I've heard from, there's being somebody is pressuring down in Trenton to get this thing changed. Yeah, well, good luck. It's a long process. And as you sit here tonight, it hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. Those are my comments. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. If I was too loud, I apologize. I hope you adjusted the volumes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mayor, may I just, for the record, address some of what Hazlitt has pointed out here?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So in terms of in Holmdel Township, from the late 90s or mid 90s through the time that the Council on Affordable Housing existed, participated in that process before what's known as COA. In 2008, the township had an affordable housing plan, which was done in conjunction with the housing element and fair share plan back in 2008. of which Hazlet would have been noticed of. And there was, at that time, there was a 60-unit affordable housing project on the Middle Road site that was planned for going back to 2008. Since this New Jersey Supreme Court required all municipalities that were before COA to go before the court, such as Holmdel, the township in 2015 filed a declaratory judgment action, and we're still before the court in that matter as we speak today, 5 years later. When the township initiated the affordable housing litigation, all municipalities within COA Region 4, or within Monmouth County and the adjoining Mercer and Ocean counties, were noticed of the township's court application. Hazlet received that notice. Hazlet didn't participate. In 2017, the Township Committee adopted the first settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center in this matter. Hazlet, and that was approved by resolution at a Township Committee meeting. Hazlet didn't attend that meeting or object. In 2018, the committee amended the settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center with the blessing of the court. Hazlet didn't object when it was approved. In 2019, the committee again amended the settlement agreement by resolution. Hazlet didn't appear or object. There, as part of the court process, there have been two fairness hearings that were duly noticed and advertised in accordance with law. In fact, there was a fairness hearing that lasted over 8 hours before Judge Grasso Jones in Monmouth County. And the court, as a result of those hearings, entered orders approving the settlement agreement, finding it fair and reasonable to moderate and low income households. The court also found at those fairness hearings that this site met all the COA criteria for developability. All the sites in the township's plan, including the Middle Road site. Hazlet didn't appear at the fairness hearings or object. It wasn't until, as Mr. Gorman noted, in December of 2019, the Township Planning Board adopted its housing element and fair share plan, and not strike that. It adopted a master plan reexamination report in addition to a housing element and fair share plan. And that was duly noticed as master plan amendments are required to be provided to adjoining municipalities. Hazlet was put on notice of that. Hazlet didn't appear before the Township Planning Board to object to the inclusion of the Middle Road site in December of 2019. It wasn't until this ordinance was introduced before COVID in February that Hazlet has now appeared. So I would say to you that procedurally, in terms of the court process, and in terms, certainly they're entitled to make comments here today and give their opinion, but in terms of their legal standing, they're very late to this game. In connection with the planning area arguments that Hazlet has made on the record in this matter, and as an objection to the township's final compliance hearing, which is scheduled before the court on August 5th, Hazlet asserts that the planning area is planning area 2, and that therefore you can't fit 50 units on the site. What Hazlet, and the reason I went back to 2008 and why this site was included in the township's plan back then, is that what Hazlet doesn't tell the committee nor tell the court is that the DEP GIS mapping, upon which engineers and planners rely upon, show the site split between planning area 1 and planning area 2. So that is the premise upon which this project was designed. And the reason the DEP GIS mapping, in fact, if you went on the DEP GIS mapping as late as yesterday, which our planner did, that will reflect that the planning area on the DEP maps is still split between planning area 1 and planning area 2. That is significant from a legal perspective in a number of ways. But most importantly, what the Walters Group, the township's developer, needs to do is go to DEP and get a CAFRA, a permit under state law known as CAFRA. And that's what imposes these requirements, the coverage limitations. And so I would suggest to the committee that these arguments concerning what the what this site is, what the DEP GIS mapping shows versus what the State Planning Commission shows is relevant only when the Walters Group goes to the DEP and tries to get a CAFRA permit. That is the time when Hazlitt can make these arguments if it so chooses. But certainly from a zoning perspective, given the history of where we are in this affordable housing litigation, and where we are is we have, as I said, a final compliance hearing scheduled for August 5th. And at that point, all the township needs to show the court is that we've adopted the ordinances and resolutions that were noted in the special master's report. This Middle Road ordinance that you're considering tonight for adoption has been vetted and commented upon by the court special master. We've taken into account the master's comments. Those are not, that is not, so the idea that this is not legal is I would say, at best a flawed argument, since the court and the court master is, has reviewed, well, that court hasn't, but the court master has reviewed this ordinance. In terms of the Bell Works arguments, I think Hazlitt's absence from our court proceedings since 2015 underscores the weakness of their points, because I guess what Hazlitt wouldn't know is that Somerset Development, as the owner of the Bell Works project, participated as an interested party in the township's Mount Laurel case. And during that proceeding, what Somerset, and I think Mr. Gorman inaccurately describes the agreements with Bell Works or Somerset, but the choices are as follows. Either the affordable housing units are put on site on Bell Works, they're put off site at another location in Holmdel Township with the township's consent, or they pay an in lieu fee at $50,000 plus per unit. And the Bell Works argued before the court that they didn't have to make that choice under the agreements with the township until July of 2020, and that therefore they didn't need to make that choice back in 2015 when we were trying to resolve the matter with Fair Share Housing Center. So what the township decided at that point in time is that whatever units Bell Works ultimately provides the township, wherever they are, or if they pay money in lieu of providing the units, that would be handled, and that would the township would take credit either in money or units towards its future affordable housing obligations, not its third round affordable housing obligation. And rather than litigate with Bell Works about the meanings of those agreements back in 2018, the township committee at that time chose to accept future credit for the Bell Works units. And I would also like to note for the record that the township, through the business administrator and myself, had discussions with Hazlitt concerning making some adjustments to the site, but Hazlitt wasn't, and that's really not have anything to do with whether you adopt this legally, whether you adopt this ordinance or not. But I will tell you that Hazlitt did not welcome any entrees from the township in that regard. It's their position that what they're asserting basically through Mr. Gorman and their planner is what they're looking for. So with that, and I know our planner, Jennifer Beam, is on the line. I'm not sure if Jennifer has any other comments, but that is what I would like to put on the record. Jen, I think Jen's on, but she is not, I think you have to let her.
We just let her in.
We let her in.
I'm here.
Jennifer, this is Andy Bayer. Did you have any other comments beyond what I indicated?
No, I think you covered it. I agree with you that based upon the GIS database that the DEP relies upon, currently the site is in both a PA1 and a PA2, and that's something that the developer is going to have to address, which is an outside agency approval. And they'll have to deal with that issue when they go to the DEP for their approvals.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
And Mayor, before we continue with the public hearing, I just want to note that this is a public hearing that is specific to the ordinance that is before the committee, which is ordinance 2020-06, which is a zoning ordinance. So I would ask that any comments that are being made be specific to the zoning ordinance in question. I know that the last comment raised a whole bunch of other issues related to affordable housing, but I would note those are not contained in the ordinance and were previous actions of the Township Committee several months, if not years ago. So public comments on this during this public hearing on the ordinance should be specific to the zoning ordinance at issue.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I had one other comment which I didn't address. If I may, I apologize. Which is that, and maybe Ms. Beam can address it as well, because I don't think she was on the line when Mr. Gorman made these comments on behalf of Hazlitt. But the December 2019 action by the Planning Board was a master plan reexamination report and amendment to the housing element and fair share plan. That's what the document indicates. And under law, there is no individual notice. This ordinance is being done to implement a master plan recommendation as well as what's required by the court. So that's why there was no individualized notice. And I'll ask Ms. Beam again if I missed anything in that regard.
No, that's correct. What was before the planning board in December of 2019 was in fact a master plan reexamination plus a housing element and fair share plan as required by the court. So this is an implementation of a recommendation that came out of not only the reexamination report, but the housing element and fair share plan, as well as the court order.
And you have that report that the planning board approved was prepared by you, Ms. Beam?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just reconfirm what Counselor said, that the comments we're taking right now are only regard to 2020-06, the ordinance that we're hearing. Wendy, who's next in queue?
Next, we have Michael Glacken. Can you hear us, Michael?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you please just state your name and address for the record?
Mike Lacken, 7 Gibson Drive, Hazard, New Jersey. Thank you, Mayor and Council Committee. I just wanted to go on the record to let you know of Hazard's objection for the proposed Middle Road site project. Our objections are site suitability, site design, and project location. Our township attorney has gone over some more things in depth, but I just wanted to give a few other additional statements. When Hazard became aware of this most recent zoning ordinance, that's when we looked at it and fashioned our objection. Obviously, the most obvious one was the CAFRA issues. And again, this CAFRA drives the impervious coverage that is used for the site, and therefore it dictates the number of units on the site. It is, I feel that is disingenuous for the committee to vote on it knowing that there's something wrong. There's conflicting information given to you by the DEP. Number two is one thing that the attorney did not address was there's a drainage issue, a drainage easement issue on this. The judge has allowed Hazard to intervene in the condemnation because of this easement. This is not just a monetary issue, this is also a physical issue. So until this condemnation is resolved, again, I think it's disingenuous for you guys to vote on this. And then also in the zoning ordinance itself, when it talks about the height restrictions and the setbacks, 5-foot distance from the parking lot from the homes on Marsan Drive there's nowhere else in your zone do you have anything like this. 20-foot setbacks to a 45-foot building. Nowhere else in your zone do you have this. Again, our attorney said that you wouldn't do this to Holmdel residents. Why are you doing it to Hazard residents? And again, he made the point that in your spending plan, it clearly identifies where the money for this project's coming from. So to say that this is not, one for the other regarding the Bell Works is again disingenuous. When you exclude units from somewhere else. That is exclusionary zoning, and that's what affordable housing is trying to stop. But again, I know it's difficult when you're doing affordable housing. I know that these issues are not easy, but this is a property that you selected. It wasn't a builder's remedy where somebody was forcing it on you. This is a property that you selected. You purchased through eminent domain, and which is still that's still in the courts. But again, there are issues on this. To vote on this tonight while these issues are still outstanding, I think is disingenuous. Thank you for the time and appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment. Wendy? You're muted, Wendy.
Sorry. Next, we have Dean LaBarca. Dean, you're muted.
Dean, you're muted.
Okay. Can you please state your name and address, Dean?
Yes, Dean LaBarca, 23 Miller Avenue, Holmdel, New Jersey. I find some of what's been said by the Hazard Council pretty disturbing to me, because he brings up a couple of occasions towards the end of his time about how we would feel if it was Holmdel residents being affected by what he kept referring to as squeezing in something where it doesn't belong. And as some of you know, the past couple of years, we residents of Holmdel at the Miller Avenue section tried to combat the building of the Holiday Inn expansion to put a 4-story building right up against our homes, literally 40 feet from my house and even closer to my neighbor's house. Tear down the woods, cover the property, and we formed a Holmdel Homeowners Association called Newstead. And we went to the Land Use Board at the Hazlet meetings, which went on for months. We're never really given a fair chance. And all our quality of life concerns, all of them, were completely discarded. They had variances from, first of all, the lot not being zoned for a hotel. Even the original Holiday Inn that's here now was already varied and did not comply with the original land use zoning. And not only was it granted that they build this second hotel, but they also, again, yet again, okayed the variance from what the land is supposed to be used for. And we had major concerns. We have major concerns now about quality of life with the existing motel that's already here. And they're going to be compounded and increased. And we brought them all up at the Land Use Board's Hazard Township meetings. This went on for months. Even Mayor Bontempo a couple of years ago stood up and asked some questions as well back then. And the Land Use Board pretty much just shot us all down, didn't respect us at all, and just ignored and didn't even, not one variance from the land usage to the building height, to how close to our properties, to the concern we had about the sound and noise and nuisance barrier between our homes and the commercial property, which is to be expanded, and many other problems, including safety and strangers and the busy intersection, ground coverage, water issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they did not vary or care to vary. Well, when I say vary, what I mean is they allowed the builder permission. They granted permission for everything without even making one single little tiny adjustment to any single one of our quality of life concerns. So when Hazard tells this board committee here that we should start thinking about what if it was your residences, where were they? Where were they when this hotel has been given permission to I don't even know because of COVID that they haven't started construction yet, or if the owner maybe changed his mind by now. It has been a couple of years, but they granted him everything he wanted, all his variances, with the residences that this was going to be built on top of. I'm going to come out in my yard and I'm going to look over, instead of seeing another home or something small, I'm going to see a 4-story building. And I'm going to see a parking lot right up to my fence. I'm going to see strangers. I'm going to see all the stuff I see now that's at this hotel here, except it's going to be compounded and it's going to be increased. And he's also, well, I won't even get into that part, but it's just mind-boggling to me that Hazard can come to you guys and ask to have a heart and say, what would you do if it was your residences? Well, this is why this allows me to say what I'm saying now about something that's not really related to this, but the attorney brought it in because he mentioned that, how would the Holmdel residences feel? Well, and guess what? What they're going to build here is not even something that they're required to build, like you guys are required to meet an Affordable Housing Act one way or another. This is just an entrepreneur wanting to make money, and therefore Holmdel Township is seeing the taxes every time a room is rented and didn't give 1 ounce of care or concern towards any of our quality of life issues. And I wanted to just put that out on the record for those people, for you guys, for the people out in Hazard to hear.
Ms. LaBarca, thank you very much for your comment. Wendy?
Next, we have Stacy Gregg.
Stacey, you could just take yourself off mute and just state your name and address for the record, please. Stacey, you're still muted. Could you unmute her?
Yeah, I've tried.
Brian?
Yeah, it's not working.
Stacey, could you unmute yourself?
Go back to Ms. Gregg.
Can you put her
No.
back in queue and give her a chance to unmute and then put somebody else in?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, again, these are just comments on ordinance 2020-06 right now, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Kyle F.
Kyle, you can just state your
Kyle.
name and address for the record. Kyle? You're off mute. You're back on mute, Kyle.
Do you hear me?
Now you can.
Yes, this is Kyle Farron. I live at 22 Gerald Terrace. I am probably within 100 feet of this property. I would like to start with, I live in Hazlet,
Okay.
right where the property is, which probably should be Hazlet property, but we'll leave that aside. So aside from the retaliatory measures that the previous caller or a person from Holmdel wanted to comment on, that hotel has been there the whole time. So I'm not sure why a property needs to be rammed on top of my property in Hazlet, but we'll put that aside. I agree with everything that the mayor, or excuse me, the lawyer for Hazlet mentioned in the beginning. I've lived here 30 years. That property is, I would say, 30% or more wetlands. My property itself has water problems, as does Marsan Drive, which is right behind this property. I also happen to work in construction, and I do know that, you know, fitting a property of that size into a 50-unit building into that size property is nearly impossible. You'd need maybe 100 parking spots, which is impossible based on the land that's there if you just looked at it. So, you know, as a resident of Hazlet for 30 years, someone who's lived here, knows this area. Everybody that lives around this knows that it could not fit 50 people. So what we'd ask is that you look at it from a reasonable standpoint and look at the land. It is probably not 4.8 or 4.9 acres that you're trying to call it. That's nonsense. From a feasibility standpoint, And from a drainage standpoint, it affects everybody around this property. And I have not been noticed one single time. So your lawyer stated many times that Hazlitt missed appearances. I'm a Hazlitt resident and I'm right near this property and I have not been notified one single time. So that would mean that basically nobody that's affected by it has ever been noticed of this. And we would just like maybe to consider the people that live right behind it. And from firsthand knowledge here, we know of someone whose house was to be sold and they walked away from the sale of the house because of this decision. So all I'd leave you with is that there's a lot of people, many, many people who will fight this all the way through, including to make sure that Holmdel remembers, what we've done here. So all I'm saying is I live nearby. I don't mind development. I want responsible development. I work in construction. I know full well there is plenty of land all over Holmdel that would fit 50 units. It does not need to be rammed into a site that should fit 30, maybe 20 units. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Wendy?
Next is Stacy Gregg.
Hey, Stacy, you're still muted.
When I try to unmute it,
Okay, you're muted.
Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not from Holmdel, I'm from
please state your
Rockaway.
name and address.
Stacy Gregg, 40 Sunrise Road, Wharton, New Jersey. Actual it's Rockaway Township, but it was played with for whatever reason. So I have to use the Wharton address, but it's Rockaway Township. Having had development happen around me, I believe it's behooves the town to do the right thing and to go back and check any notifications that did not go out. Usually there's a 200, there's a certain amount of feet that all neighbors have to be notified. And I'm curious if that, what proof do you have that that was done in this situation? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Wendy, anybody else in queue on 2020-06 ordinance?
Yes, we have Jack.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Little feedback, sorry about that. I just want to follow up on.
Jack, please state your name and address for the record before you start.
Sorry about that, Greg. It's Jack City, 7 Russell Place, Hazlitt. So I would like to follow up with the comments that Mr. Gorman made earlier about the water issue. Have any of the committee members actually been to the property?
Jack, could you please maybe, we're getting a lot of feedback. It's very difficult to hear you.
Sure, hang on one second.
Maybe turn off the volume on your end.
How's that, better?
Yes.
So first off, yeah, as other residents have stated, as Mr. Gorman stated, there's a significant water issue there. Drainage is a huge problem. The area floods, it retains water. I noticed in an article that was published in 2019, Ms. Brahm, your planner, stated, Holmdel is challenged by a variety of issues, and understand that some of the comments of these projects are always pushed to the north of Holmdel, and I understand the concerns with it, but in order for a project to satisfy the criteria as being appropriate, there needs to be sewer, and you're only sewered in a specific portion of the town. That limits you where these sites can go because you need access to sewer. With that stated, there's 11 acres currently for sale at the intersection of Holland Avenue and Laurel, which, if you're not familiar with that particular area, also located in that vicinity is the AT&T complex. So my question for the committee is, first, was that area even brought up in a planning meeting? Because if in my humble and uneducated construction opinion, I would think that a complex that's big enough to handle the AT&T facility would certainly have enough sewer capability to handle 60, 80 unit housing area. Mr. Gorman also brought up Bellworks. I was going to bring that up as well, but we've already beaten that horse. And then my other question was also from that same article. It's more of a quote. I quote, North Beer Street and Potter Farm sites were at one point in discussion for affordable housing projects. The North Beer Street developer backed out, Brom said. The Potter Farm field was too far from sewer service and too costly to connect. Also, the township committee members didn't think a high density development was the best representation for Holmdel for motorists coming off exit 114. That being said, bordering us and putting this, let's call it what it is, apartment buildings on our territory is no representation for Hazlet. And I understand Holmdel looks at Hazlet as a lower income area, and you don't want any type of this development right in your own backyards, as both Mr. Gorman, the Hazlet mayor, and one of the other callers brought up. But I am very curious to understand why it's okay for Holmdel to say they don't want representation like that, yet they could stick it to a neighboring town. And you're not just sticking it to one neighboring town, you're sticking it to Middletown as well, because that intersection is all three towns, Hazlet, Holmdel, and Middletown. That's my comments.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Okay. Next, we have Anthony.
Yes, hi.
Hi, please state your name and address, Anthony.
My name is Anthony Cordiello. I live at 17 AZ Drive. So I am probably 5 feet from this intended construction. And let me just say that the 5 feet space that you guys want to give me isn't even in compliance with social distancing. You want to give me 5 feet, social distancing is 6 feet. How about 40 feet, like that gentleman with the hotel was saying that he's at least 40 feet. You want to give me 5 feet. That's number one. I'm here 23, 24 years, and I'm coming very close to retiring. I came to this neighborhood when it was a lot of farm area here and a lot of building by you guys. The A&P parking lot was an apple farm when I first moved here, where the A&P was, and that's on 36. 35. I'm sorry, 35 and Laurel Avenue. So a lot of building has gone on by Holmdel in my area. And again, I agree. You want to throw this to the Hazlet area because you guys really don't care. And I do agree with everything Mr. Gorman said, our lawyer, and also the traffic in this area. If you come down this area, Laurel Avenue and Middle Road at certain hours of the day is backed up way past my house. That's what, without this new construction. And also you guys should know from your own police department that Route 35 and Laurel Avenue get so backed up that you guys have to put a sign out to say, do not block the intersection. And now you want to add 50 more houses or development apartment buildings. I just think it's not right. I think you're squeezing them in. If anybody comes down here and looks, I agree with the gentleman that just spoke. You definitely cannot fit those units into that land area. There is definitely wetlands there. My yard also has problems with water. I also get the saturation. And before, when you started your meeting, I have a flagpole in the front of my yard. You started your meeting, you did the Pledge of Allegiance, and I stood with you guys for the Pledge of Allegiance. And at the end, you say liberty and justice for all. Where's my liberty? Where's my justice? Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for your comment. Wendy?
Next, we have Greg. Allowed to talk is not available because Greg, so he's not allowed to talk because he is using an older version of Zoom. So he's not able to do that. So Greg, you're gonna have to call in, and the call-in number that you can use is 312-626-6799. Okay, we'll move on to Annette in the meantime.
There's going to be a number and a passcode that's going to be needed if he's calling in. I believe they're on our website.
Yep, and Annette, it's going to be the same thing for Annette because she's using an older version of Zoom. Okay, so I'm sorry, the phone number to call in is 312-626-6799, and the passcode would be 876475. So if you would call in, Annette, that's how you would be able to call, to speak. We'll give a few minutes for that. Greg has his hand up again. Oh, Greg is working now. This is Greg.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, can you state your name and address, please?
Sure, it's Greg Dubin, 40 Buttonwood Place in Hazlet, New Jersey. My concerns with this project is I have children going to the schools over there. Or is anybody going to do anything with the intersection? You guys are going to cram all these houses there, and you're going to have buses going there to go to Holmdel schools, et cetera, et cetera. Are we going to improve that intersection? That was a question.
So you state all your comments, questions, and then we could address them at the end. We don't go individually.
Okay. My other question was regarding, are this traffic studies been done already for the area? And what was the outcome of that? Also, the water runoff, which has been addressed. And my last one is just more or less a comment. I mean, we understand that I'm in Hazlet. I'm not your affluent neighbors. But why you got to dump that on us? You have all that property all the way out to Route 34, up and down 34. I mean, you have so much property available to your township, and you got to cram that little bit in there and mess with everybody over here. I don't feel it's fair. I don't think you're being you're not being good neighbors, put it that way. That's all.
Thank you for your comment. You're muted, Wendy.
Sorry. I'm going to try Annette one more time since Greg got in. No, I'm sorry, Annette, you're going to have to call in. Okay. Now we have Robert.
Hello, everybody. This is Robert Generke. I'm at 77 Arlington Court in Holmdel. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees for Palmer Square Homeowners Association. And I'd like to just add my 2 cents in support of the concerns that everybody's voicing about Middle Road, because the issues of squeezing too large a structure into too small a space, especially a space that has water drainage issues, is very common to both Middle Road and Palmer Avenue. So we share that concern. And this, along with a lack of proper notifications, is also common to both locations. Now, the township representatives on this call, only Mr. Bayer and Ms. Beam were involved during the earliest negotiations around affordable housing, back when Judge O'Brien was still overseeing implementation. So the other members of the committee may not be aware of what was going on at the time, but at the time there were offers from the other intervening parties, including at Bellworks, to assume responsibility from meeting the overall obligation for units. And the judge was prepared to accept these offers and include them in the settlement agreement. However, Mr. Baer refused the offers, and in fact, he even misrepresented the character and nature of the objections of the residents on Palmer Avenue by saying that we were simply against affordable housing, which was not true, it was absolutely untrue. What we were concerned about was the size of the structure, the fact that it will affect flooding on the avenue. And this is true, I mention it now, because this is also true of Middle Road. And Mr. Baer's objection prevented the implementation of other people's offers. Now the judge has upheld that because she felt, well, this is the person to listen to. Now I've got a lot of confidence, an enormous amount of confidence in the integrity of all of you who are currently on the township committee. And in prior years, I have to say, homeowners and renters on Palmer Avenue and along Middle Road were more or less ignored by the committee. Plans were railroaded through, and there were very legitimate objections. We were really not listened to. And I'm sorry that you, and I really like all you guys, I really do, everybody on that committee, I'm sorry that you're now confronted by the errors, by bad judgments and decisions made by your predecessors on the committee. But the mess is here now. It doesn't much matter who made it, but it's left to you to kind of clean it up as best we can. Remember, once you go down this road and you permit these very large constructions, whether it's Middle Road or Palmer, you can't go back. You can't restore the Holmdel that existed before. So the decision you make tonight, the decision you make at the planning board stage, these are decisions that we all have to live with for a long, long time to come. And I'm just sorry to see it placed in your lap right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
We have Kyle F. that is, I believe he spoke already.
Correct.
Does Kyle have any further new comments or else?
Kyle, you're muted. Kyle?
No, I'm fine. I would just add that, just the common courtesy to the people in Hazlet would be appreciated. I know I spoke on the gentleman earlier. What I'd like to say is, doing the same wrong thing twice doesn't really make much sense. So, for all the people that might be listening here, we just want to be reasonable about what we go forward with. And 50 units does not seem reasonable in the size of that property if you just go stand there. So I will leave it at that.
Thank you. Any more comments, Wendy?
Yes, we do. We have James Gorman.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to get back to the question that Mr. Baer said that you would answer at the end. Was this noticed? Well, somebody, I'll make it simpler.
We don't go, counsel, we don't go back and forth. If you have your statement, you can say your statement and you can be dropped off and then counsel will answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just finish. So there's two parts. One, was the clerk noticed? The second question is, were the people within 200 feet noticed?
Thank you for the comment. Wendy, you could drop them.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I'll address the 200-foot people were not noticed because it was in conjunction with the master plan re-examination report. I did comment on that already. And the notice of the hearing was in the Asbury Park Press. Hazlet was initially noticed of the original ordinance when it was introduced. And I understand, and I communicated with Mr. Gorman as well about tonight's hearing date.
Thank you, Counselor. Wendy?
Okay, we have Wendy Cruz.
Hello.
It was
Hello.
Greg is.
Hello, Greg?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, I had asked
How
a
that
question,
happened.
and you guys never gave me an answer to two questions I asked. One was traffic studies, and the other one is Holmdel Township going to upgrade that intersection? Those are the two questions, and I didn't get an answer.
Um,
I
Mr.
guess I'm
Mayor,
not-
in I think this is really a planner question, if we'd allow Ms. Beam, but I would generally say the traffic studies are done if required, but when the applicant's before the planning board, this is a stage in the process. And if that planning board, and Ms. Beam as the planning board planner can comment on that.
Sure. So this is just rezoning the property. This is not a development application. So when and if an application is made by the developer to the planning board, all relevant studies will be conducted and done and submitted to the planning board office, and all property owners within 200 feet are required to be noticed for a site plan application. At that time, drainage studies will be done, traffic studies will be done. So until a development application is made, those types of detailed studies have not been undertaken, which is typical for a zoning ordinance. This is zoning. This is not a development application. I understand that the concern over what the zoning will and can allow for, but until such time as an actual development application is made to the planning board, all that detail is done at that time. And everybody, including those in Hazlet that are within 200 feet of this property, will be noticed as part of the municipal land use law requirements for a site plan application. So those things will be available for review and comment, and there'll be a public hearing at the planning board should the committee act favorably on the zoning and an application be made by the developer.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Next, we have Wendy Cruz up. Okay, Ms. Cruz, your Zoom is saying it's an older version and you're not able to be let in this way. You would have to call if you wanted to comment. The phone number is 312-626-6799. And the passcode is 876475.
They will also need the webinar ID, which is 859-6190-2649.
Okay, next we have Hayden Grant.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, this is Colleen O'Connor Grant, Hayden's wife. Thank you for taking my question or comment. I'm not used to speaking publicly, but I did submit a brief policy paper about affordable housing and the framework.
Colleen, can you state your name, excuse me, and your address, please?
Colleen O'Connor Grant, 300 Bowery, New York, 10012. I grew up in Hazlet and I recently completed a master's program in planning, which is why I submitted a policy paper to you regards, I'm an advocate for affordable housing. And I'm wondering what the plans are to confront the lack of mass transportation for these residents and about the food desert the residents who move into South Laurel Avenue will find themselves in. This is because frameworks in planning have changed. And in the context of a suburban setting, affordable housing is for individuals who may not have access to vehicles. So you're trading one issue, which is a lack of affordable housing in your township, but you need to consider the negative externalities for the people who will live there. And currently South Laurel Avenue has no access to mass transportation and is a food desert. So thank you for considering reviewing my policy paper about this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Jack once again.
Hi.
Jack, please restate your name and address for the record.
Sure.
Ugh, even worse.
Sure. Jack City, 7 Russell Place, spoke earlier. I just want to make sure I'm understanding with what Ms. Brahm had said earlier regarding the actual application process. So the committee basically selected this parcel based on paperwork. You looked at a map, you didn't go out and see the physical components of the area. You said, okay, this looks like it'll be a great spot to squeeze the development in, but you were unaware of all the issues that this particular piece of property has. Number one is the wetlands and water issue that's been mentioned multiple times. Number two is the traffic issue at that particular intersection. Number three, just probably about 600 feet down the road on Laurel Ave is our emergency response facility. You know, I understand that Holmdel has an obligation to fulfill its affordable housing requirements, but I really believe that you should revisit the location. This is an area that's already heavily congested. By introducing, and I'm sorry, Ms. Roundtree, if my comments are boring you, I could see your body language is not really enjoying my comments, but I think that the town, in order to be fair to its neighbors, needs to reevaluate its plans before moving forward. Like, we're not opposed to affordable housing. If you guys came to us and said, look, we want to build the 30-unit townhouse complex behind the sweet shop and dance studio, sure, if it fits, all for it. But where we get our concerns are the amount of people that you're trying to squeeze into this small piece of property, the issues that are with the property that we're warning you about before you even move forward. We're presenting problems for you to solve. We're not coming at you with pitchforks and torches. We want you to know what you're getting into. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jack, again. Wendy?
Next we have Hayden Grant again.
Ms. Colleen?
I also just wanted to add, you might not know the commercial business history.
Colleen, just restate your name and edge for the record, please.
Sure. Colleen O'Connor Grant, 300 Bowery, New York, but grew up in Hazlitt. The history of the property, which I completely understand if you guys might not know about, because it is, it's Hazlitt, it's a little off the beaten path. There's a dry cleaning business that used to operate adjacent to this property. So there is a concern about perk runoff. And on the property itself, there was a nursery, which of course, besides selling plants, also sells fertilizer, Roundup, all of those types of things. So maybe before anything proceeded, you might want to undertake your own soil and water testing just so you had a baseline understanding of the property itself, especially considering it's for affordable housing. So there's some headline risk with moving people into potentially contaminated areas. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Wendy?
Yes, I'm here. We have Jack again.
No, sorry.
No, okay, thanks. We have Mr. Gorman again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I want my question answered. Was an email notice sent to the clerk in Hazlitt?
Just state your name and address for the record,
Sure.
please.
James Gorman. I'm the attorney for Hazlitt Township. My address is 1129 Broad Street, Shrewsbury, New Jersey. Was an email sent to Hazlitt Township?
Okay, Mr. Gorman, you've commented 3 different times, and we would like to, have some finality to the argument. I'll respond to your question.
It's not an argument. It's not an argument.
This is not a deposition.
I'm asking a question.
This is not a
It's
deposition.
jurisdictional. Mr. Collins, with all due respect, I'm asking whether or not notice was sent. That's not an argumentative question.
I'm not saying it is. What I am asking is that you ask your questions to completion. You make your comments to completion so that we can allow everyone else to speak. You've interjected 3 times, and we've been kind enough to allow you to interject numerous times. So we're going to ask you to make all your comments to completion so that we can wrap up our comments from yourself and we can hear from all the others who are patiently waiting.
I'm really sorry, Mr. Collins. I've asked it 3 times. Was an email notice sent to Hazlitt Township for this meeting?
Do you have any other comments?
Depends on what else comes up. You've had Mr. Collins, please don't do that. I can see you, you can't see me. But Mr. Bear there are a lot of things I'd like to respond to, but I'm not going to. I asked this question at the beginning. I asked this question. Excuse me, Mr. Pascucci, doctor, please.
Nice.
I'm asking a question. I'm asking,
Nice.
I'm asking a question.
Nice. You are not being respectful.
Okay.
Enough said.
Dr. Pascucci, I have a simple question. Was an email notice sent to Hazlet Township for this meeting? Yes or no?
Yes, it was sent to you, Mr. Gorman. You're its representative, correct?
Yeah, but that's not what the statute says.
Okay, so you can make all the legal arguments you want. We're not a judge. We're not a court.
Okay.
You asked me on behalf of Hazlet Township when this hearing was going on, and I told you at least 2 weeks ago, more than 2 weeks ago.
No, that's not what you said, but I have the email in front of me if you want to look at it. But okay, we'll fight it out someplace else. Thank you.
Wendy?
Okay.
Anybody else in queue?
I see we still have a net here. It's not going to be able to work. You're going to have to call in. Then we have Wendy Cruz, same thing. It's not going to work. She's going to have to call in. We have Jack again. Jack?
It looks like Wendy Cruz came in on maybe another.
I think I was getting to that one after this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why my hand will not lower.
All right, I'll put your hand down.
I believe Ms. Cruz can speak now.
Okay, let me try.
Let's see her. Cruz?
Hi, my name is Wendy Cruz. I live at number 9 Marsan Drive. The property that we're talking about is in my backyard. I've been here since 1966, lived in my house. The traffic here is horrendous. We've even had a child hit and it landed in my driveway. I don't know how they could put more houses in this area to let people survive. It's just getting worse every day. They go 50 miles an hour down this. We've tried to get bumps in the street and everything. Nothing seems to work in our way. Like I said, I'm here since 1966. I've seen a lot. That's pretty much I just wanted to say about the traffic, because more people coming, and that's all wetlands back there. Other people have tried. They've tried to buy that property. It just doesn't work out. I don't know what the problem is. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I don't see any other hands up for this.
Is Annette a hand? That came down.
Yeah,
All right.
she can't call in.
No, she can call in.
No, she can't be let in through this. I told her 4 times to call with the phone number.
Right. So she can call with the phone number and have an opportunity to speak. She has to press *9 in order to raise her hand on the call. I did not see an additional phone dial-in. There was one at the start of the meeting and there's still one, so I don't believe she has called in.
No.
Ms. Cruz's hand is up.
Okay.
I think that's, okay.
She was the last one on.
I just want to say I'm her daughter and I did try to call in and it will not let you call in. And I'm tech savvy. I've tried everything that you gave us and you cannot call in.
What happened when you tried
to? It says it's invalid. All the information I entered multiple times says invalid.
I can read it to you one more time if you'd like.
Well, I already have you here, so I came on my cell phone and logged into the meeting. So just if nobody's calling in, that could be why, because it says invalid.
Well, there is somebody that has called in. So I don't know why it's not working for you, but did work for someone else.
Don't know, but I'm telling you what it said.
I'm happy to restate the phone number and web ID and passcode if you want to try again.
She's on, Sharon. She's just letting us know that it might be a problem for people. So I think the best thing is to refer people to the website so they can look at the numbers if they have to dial in.
Mm-hmm.
So any other?
Right in.
You got in? Okay.
No.
Any other comment, Wendy? None?
No.
None?
That's it.
Motion to close public portion.
Moved.
Second.
Excuse me, to clarify, Mayor, are you closing the public portion and it's a motion to adopt on final reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, just to clarify, the mayor's requesting a motion to close the public hearing and adopt ordinance 2020-06.
Moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Pascucci,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Yes.
Ms. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo.
Yep.
Ordinance 2020-06 has been successfully passed.
Wendy, you roll into 2020-07.
Sir. Ordinance 2020-07 is an ordinance of the Township of Holmdel amending the General Code of the Township of Holmdel, deleting Chapter 14, Sections 14-1 through 14-29A, and replacing it entirely with the new section entitled Affordable Housing to address the requirements of the Fair Housing Act and the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls regarding compliance with the Township's third round affordable housing obligations.
Thank you, Wendy. Council, you want to?
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. This ordinance, again, is required as part of our compliance hearing, court on our Mount Laurel litigation. It's all this ordinance does is incorporate the New Jersey Council on Affordable Housing regulations concerning the sale and rental of affordable housing units into the township code. So the state regulation, and I'll tell you that Holmdel Township has an excellent administrative agent, Community Grants and Planning, who markets and leases or sells your affordable housing units, and they're very good and they follow the law. But the court required the township to put this in the code so that everyone's aware of it, and that's what this ordinance accomplishes.
So this is more procedural, I guess, Andy?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the committee for council? Seeing none, we can roll the public portion. We'll take comments on just this ordinance 2020-07. Wendy?
I see one hand up and it's for Annette. And once again, she is not able to speak because she's using an older version of Zoom. I did try the number to call in and it did work for me when I tried to call it in. So I'm not really sure. Okay, and other than that, there are not any hands up for ordinance 2020-07.
With none being, we'll close public portion of the motion.
Move.
Second.
Do a roll call, just all in favor?
I think we need a roll call.
Roll call?
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-07 has been successfully passed. Okay. The next ordinance 2020-08 and is an ordinance amending chapter 14, article 2 entitled Development Fee Provision, repealing and replacing sections 14-30 to 14-39 with a new section entitled Development Fees.
Counselor?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This ordinance, again, is required by the court and the court master. And all this, the township has had a development fee ordinance in effect since the 90s. And all this does is update the ordinance to make it consistent with current law. So the fees that are in the ordinance stay the same as they were. It's 1.5% for residential development and 2.5% for non-residential development. But the ordinance itself is being approved by the court rather than COA, and that's the main change that we've implemented in the ordinance.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions from the Township Committee for Council? Seeing none, I'll roll the public portion. Wendy?
I don't see any hands raised, Mayor.
Closed public portion. Do I have a motion?
Moved. Second.
Second.
Take your pick, Wendy. Roll call, please.
Dr. Pascucci,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Yes.
Ms. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo.
Yep.
So ordinance 2020-08 has also been successfully passed.
Perfect. So now roll into consent agenda. I think we have a modification to the consent agenda, Counselor?
That's correct, Mayor. Would it be the committee's desire to amend the consent agenda and then have public comment on the consent agenda?
Yes.
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 Okay, so the proposed amendment would be to amend the consent agenda to include a revised spending plan as part of Resolution 239, which was sent to the Township Committee, and also to add Resolution 2020-240, which is titled Resolution of the Township of Holmdel, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, authorizing a New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency agreement for the Middle Road property. So it would be a motion to amend the consent agenda accordingly.
Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Dr. Pascucci,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Yes.
Ms. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo.
Yes. So before we vote on consent agenda items, we allow a public portion for questions on the consent agenda items. So we can open up for public portion for the consent agenda items that we are.
And I would note, Mayor, that the standing resolution adopted at reorganization applies to this comment period. So comments are limited to 3 minutes in duration and one comment.
Attorney Collins, can you just clarify, because I think there was some confusion about why our general comment period is limited to 3 minutes, but the comment periods for the ordinance were extended and people are allowed to speak multiple times?
Certainly,
Just to
Deputy
clarify
Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, the hearings that are prescribed for ordinances have specific state law and case law that applies to them, and that so they are treated differently than the public comment period that we have at the end of the meeting on any topic of concern, as well as the comment period on general agenda items, which was added at your request earlier this year at reorganization. So both of those comment periods are governed by the resolution that was adopted at reorganization. And again, it simply has a 3 minute time constraint, and we ask everyone to make their comment during their one period of commenting.
Thank you.
Certainly.
So the public portion is now for the consent agenda items that we're discussing this evening. Wendy?
We have one hand up, which is James Gorman.
Good evening. James Gorman, the Township Attorney for Hazlet Township. You said, I thought I heard that the spending plan has been amended. Where's that? What change has been made, and is that posted someplace? Could you describe the change?
Go through all your questions, comments, Mr. Gorman, and then we'll answer.
I don't think that's the way it works, but go ahead. Let me address this. That the spending plan anticipates, as I said before, it anticipates that you're getting a payment in lieu from Bell Works of excess of $5 million. That is not in any recorded agreement. That is not in any agreement that's available. And I understood you had a closed session for about an hour. I made an open request for these documents about the interrelationship between Bell and Middle Road. They were denied. On your workshop for your executive session, it says that these matters will be disclosed when they're done. Was any decision made about your spending plan, about Somerset? Because it says the anticipated date for disclosure is July 2020. You don't have any more meetings. Has there been a decision? Did things change? What's changed in the spending plan? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for comment.
If I could just address, Mayor, with respect to Somerset, yes, Somerset was listed as an executive session topic. We will not be disclosing any of the details of that conversation, but Mr. Gorman is more than welcome to file an Oprah request, as he has done many times, and we will provide him with any documents that him and his client are entitled to under law, including executive session minutes when the need for confidentiality is no longer required. I'll defer to Mr. Bayer for any comment on the spending plan.
Yeah, in terms of the spending plan, we received a comment from the court master who had reviewed the plan that was prepared by our planner, Paul Phillips' office. And the original plan had $500,000 of unspent, or it's not really spent, but it's unplanned. It was a balance of $500,000 that wasn't committed to any particular project. The master had requested that money be allocated in accordance with the requirements of COA regulations. And so the revised spending plan addresses that request by the master. Money was allocated to affordability assistance, which additional money was allocated to affordability assistance, and additional money towards administration of the plan. And that's really it. That was the only change. The only other comment I have is that there is no, Mr. Gorman there's a misplaced premise in his statements or questions. There really is no connection between the Middle Road, legal connection between the Middle Road site and the Bell Works site in any way. So I'm not sure what that means, but they are, as I indicated earlier, Bell Works has been deferred to the township's fourth round plan. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Wendy, anybody else?
No, Mayor.
With that, I'll close public comment on agenda items. We have a motion to adopt resolution 2020-219 through 2020-240.
Moved. Second.
Roll call.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes, with a note.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Resolutions 2020-2019 to 2020-240 have been successfully passed.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
Any other ordinances we have to deal with that are on the agenda, Wendy?
Yes, we have introduction of ordinances.
Okay.
We have introduction of ordinance 2020-14, which is a 2020 salary, amending the 2020 salary ordinance for non-aligned employees. Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for August 11th, 2020.
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Dr. Pascucci? He left. Okay. Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Okay. And then we're on to 2020-15 for introduction, which is a bond ordinance providing an appropriation of $2 million for various capital improvements in and by the Township of Holmdel in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, and authorizing the issuance of $1,900,000 bonds or notes of the township for financing part of the appropriation. Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set public hearing for August 11th, 2020.
Moved.
Mayor Bontempo, I have a quick comment on that.
Yeah.
I just want to point out to the residents that we have a link that shows the various items that are related to this bond ordinance. We want to continue to do this for all bond ordinances, especially that comes under the category of various capital improvement projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
We'll go to departments. I'm going to start with the CFO. Bill, I first want to congratulate you on his report. Outstanding. And any updates from you this evening?
Thank you. I just have one update regarding taxes and pile payments. They're due on August 1st. You have a 10-day grace period, so you can pay through Monday, the August the 10th. However, the payments have to be in the hands of the tax collector pursuant to statute and not the date that's postmarked on it. So please have your payments in by August 10th, which is the final date before your interest is charged.
And I'm very happy to have you as our full-time CFO. Nobody better in the job. I think it's really outstanding. I wish we were in person at Town Hall so I can congratulate you in person. But
thank you, Mayor.
Really appreciate all the work you do. It's feedback across the board from everybody that you interact with has been really been outstanding. So thank you for all you do for the township, Bill.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you.
Cool. Sharon, updates, and would you mind just touching base and just updating everybody on where we are with the firehouse? And I know there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of emails that maybe you can kind of summarize them, and so everyone can know that we have moving as quickly as possible, and we are moving forward.
We are moving forward, and we're moving in parallel lines. We're still waiting for feedback from the post office. We sent them a package recently, but we're waiting to hear back, and we had some very positive feedback initially with them. So that's looking great. In terms of design and development, we have a meeting scheduled with the fire department, with their committee on this project, and our architect and our engineers for this Friday. We're getting very close to the design development documents being finalized, and hopefully we'll be out to bid relatively soon.
That's good news.
There may be a resolution before the TC at their August meeting for some cost estimation services for us, but other than that, we're moving along.
I could tell you we're all looking forward to the groundbreaking of that facility.
Yes.
Good.
Other
Thank
than
you.
that, I have no additional report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the TC may have.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for Sharon? No. Counselor, any updates from you?
I don't have any updates, Mayor. I think this is the latest you've gotten to my report at a meeting this year, so I'll leave it at that. And if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
I'm good, thank you. Ben is not on, correct? Ben is not correct. Okay.
No, he's not. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions, or he's available if need be. I believe so.
Fine. Mr. Baer, any while I have you on, anything else from you?
I do not, Mayor. I just want to thank the committee for laboring and soldiering through all the requirements of the court to get us in a position to get a final judgment. I know it's been a long road, but I think the township has made a sound decision in bringing their affordable housing matters to what is hopefully a successful conclusion. Thank you again.
And you know, Andy, I've been involved in this thing for a lot of years with you, right? I mean, we've been through dozens and dozens and dozens of meetings, you, Jen, etc. I don't think any plan of any town that you represent is overjoying with happiness that they're thrilled to be going through this process and putting forth an affordable housing plan. The challenge is, right, and I'm not sure everybody's aware, that if Holmdel did not act right before the court, there's something called builder's remedy. So for those on the line, and there could be, maybe 100 people between all the different viewing and people that will watch this after, would you mind explaining, if we did not move forward and adopt the plan that was approved by Fair Share and by the courts, and I was there with you, all those visits, and as with Dr. Pascucci was with us, what could happen to Holmdel Township and the settlement agreement we received with the number that was mandated to us?
Yes, Mayor. So the potential consequences to Holmdel would be catastrophic. Builder's remedy, if the township doesn't voluntarily meet its constitutional obligation to provide for its fair share of affordable housing, property owners or builders can sue what's known as a builder's remedy, as you noted, and ask the court to suspend zoning regulations that are in place to allow for high density development, regardless of location or township committee preferences. And what this township did and made smart decisions over the years was, since we've been in the court process, we've had immunity from builder's remedy. I've gotten a number of court orders on your behalf, protecting you from these lawsuits. And ultimately, you, the township committee, and the township chose how to meet its obligation. We got very decent set-asides from the developers for the non-middle road projects, number one, which we wouldn't get in a builder's remedy. So more affordable units than is standard under COA regulations. And you took advantage of the fact that we extended deed controls for 100 units that you had previously, going back to your second round. So we got 100 credits or more for those units. So the township has really gone about this in a smart way, and you've kept control of your zoning and have not allowed builders to do that for you. And while I know none of these, and I'll agree with you that I am never the bearer of good news for my municipal clients when it comes to affordable housing. And, but look, what you've accomplished and what we've tried to accomplish to help you and guide you is to say that, you're going to meet that obligation in the least impactful way possible, which is why the middle road site is so advantageous, because you're getting 100 credits, 100 towards your 297 unit obligation. So it's a third of you're getting 100 credits and you're allowing 50 units. If you were trying to get 100 credits from a standard inclusionary project, that means you would have 400 market rate units and 100 affordable housing units. So here, as opposed to allowing 500 units somewhere in Holmdel, you got the same credits for 50 units. And while I understand the property owners around that particular project would rather have that property not constructed, the fact is that it's something that will allow the township to meet its obligation in a very least impactful way.
Thank you, Council. I really appreciate that. Jen, while I have you on, you've been also involved with this along the way. Anything you could add for the people that are COA experts? I've gotten to become a COA expert, fortunately through all these meetings, but the regular citizen out there to be able to understand what we did and why we did it and what the benefit is for the township. Can you also kind of elaborate from your perspective as being the planner?
Sure. I mean, I agree with what Andy had indicated that, we do have a constitutional obligation to provide housing for low to moderate income households. The township does face some challenges in that you do need infrastructure, namely sewer and water, and there's a large portion of the township that does not have that infrastructure. So while there were some comments made earlier that there's all this property along 34 does not have sewer. So I understand the concerns, and we have heard it from Holmdel residents as well. Why is all this, being put in the northern portion of town? And unfortunately, that's where the infrastructure is located. So, I agree. No site is perfect. No plan is welcomed in many instances with open arms, but you are under a constitutional obligation, and maintaining immunity from builder's remedy, where builders can build what they want, where they want. Our zoning does not factor into that. There are other areas within the township that would be very detrimental if it was developed at a significant density. So, I do think that the town took great care in evaluating the best way to resolve this issue in the least impactful way. Of course, there are always going to be impacts, but this, I think, is a plan that is the least impactful. And, it was vetted out in great detail, both by Fair Share Housing Center and the court-appointed special master. And we did go through a fairness hearing where all these sites were evaluated. And so I think that the town has done a very good job in complying with the regulatory obligation and the court order and the wants and needs of Fair Share and the special master.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it helps people that don't understand the process and why we're doing what we're doing. I think when you two were the really experts, it really gives people a little more insight as to our hands were tied, and this was by far the best option for Holmdel to help the town going forward with an obligation that we had to do, or it was going to be thrust upon us. We would have had zero input into the density, where it was going, and how it was going to be built. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I very much appreciate it.
I'll go to the committee for any updates. Can I start with the deputy mayor this evening?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So first of all, I just want to share that the Traffic and Bike Safety Committee has released a survey for all residents, and it's available on the Facebook Holmdel Residents page and or Holmdel Resources for Residents page, and it's also on our township website. So I encourage everyone to fill out that survey and give us some information to move forward. And then, do you want to complete the other committee reports first, or you want me to address my follow-up from last meeting?
Go ahead, you can roll right into it.
Okay, so I just want to say a few things about our prior meeting. I want to say I appreciate everyone who made respectful comments, and I really did listen and hear. And what I heard was a lot of pain. I heard people who've suffered loss of loved ones and lives in the line of duty. I heard people who have suffered from discrimination because of the color of their skin. And I asked everyone at that time to continue the conversation and to speak with someone that held a different point of view than theirs. And I have attempted to do that myself. And I have a great deal of respect for those people that have been willing to listen and engage in that conversation. As such, I think we still in Holmdel have to confront the issues that face us. These issues are things that we're dealing with on a national level, but we are not in a bubble here in Holmdel, and they affect us as well. So I would like to make a motion that in light of the ongoing dialogue, both the national and local level, and in order to facilitate a productive discussion at the community level, I would like to propose the establishment of an ad hoc committee on human relations. And this committee will be charged with making recommendations to the mayor and the township committee for development of policies, procedures, and programs that will aid in the prevention and elimination of all types of discrimination based upon race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, age, marital status, or sex. In addition, I would like to make this motion that this committee be established as an ad hoc committee on human relations to be comprised of residents of Holmdel, which will be formalized, including the appointment of members in a resolution to be adopted on August 11th, and direct the township administrator to advertise this new ad hoc committee on the township website and solicit resumes or letters of intent per standard process from Holmdel residents that are interested in serving on the ad hoc committee.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And I would just like to add that I really look forward.
Deputy Mayor, we'll need a vote on the motion in the second.
Oh, vote and then talk. Okay.
Wendy?
And Wendy, you're muted.
Sorry. Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yeah, I think it's a good first step. Yes.
And I just want to add that I really look forward to having people volunteer for this committee that, you know, are interested in moving us forward and having open dialogue. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Committeeman Santana.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of points. First, on the Finance Committee, we had a very good Finance Committee meeting last week. Our new CFO, Bill Antonides, and our township administrator, Sharon Roundtree, were kind enough to explain the budget to the committee. We had a lot of questions related to the debt, and we are going to now start looking into contingency planning if we were to see a loss in commercial revenue, and possibly look at new revenue options. So that's the update from the Finance Committee side. I do have a comment about the related to the issue that we've been discussing in the last meeting. If that's okay, I'll do it now. Otherwise, I can wait till the end of the public portion.
No, go ahead.
You can say
Okay,
that.
good. So just like Deputy Mayor, Mr. Weber, Miss Weber, sorry, it's too late in the night. So I have been interacting with various residents as well, talking to them about how we should not make this a divisive issue. And interestingly, I actually spoke to the Holmdel High School Politics Club, and I challenged them to look at it objectively and come up with a proposal. So I want to read out a letter that I received from Michael Kravitz, also with the help of Daniel Wang, on what they did at the Holmdel Politics Club and how they analyzed it and how they arrived at a solution. So I'm going to read that email to you. Dear Mr. Santana, over this week, I have talked to many students in my club to look through to preserve our community, both by honoring Holmdel police officers and addressing systemic racism in our community. We have come to the conclusion that taking away the line does not address both issues effectively and is an oversimplified solution to the issue. As a club, we brainstorm various practical ways to address the issue at hand. Over time, we have come to understand that any performative action is very difficult to achieve any of these goals. And so we proposed the mayoral pledge by the Obama Foundation. With this pledge, the mayor can show outward support to address systemic racism and also keep the line to show support for the police. Various mayors of cities such as Bloomfield, Metuchen in New Jersey have already taken the pledge. The pledge encompasses a set of proposals to address the issues of racial inequality while still honoring the Holmdel police. I will link the pledge here. So bottom line, whether you agree or not with the solution proposed by the Holmdel High School Club, I want to applaud the students for looking at it very objectively and coming to a consensus so that this issue is not divisive. So please remember the famous quote from Abraham Lincoln, "A house divided cannot stand." So we cannot look at this, and we should not be looking at it in a divisive fashion. And I implore all of you to follow the lead of the Holmdel High School students. Thank you.
Thank you, Committeeman. I have a couple of quick things. First, I want to thank the Deputy Mayor for covering for me for the last meeting. I was unable to attend. I had the opportunity to see my son's graduation ceremony, which was a big deal for the family and for him and for me to participate. So thank you for taking on the task. I really appreciate you did an incredible job, running the meeting last 2 weeks ago. So thank you. So there's still a lot going on, although I don't send out my updates daily like I was for some time for the community, but there's still a lot going on with COVID. I mentioned probably 2 months ago that the county had received some money through the CARES Act, and the town was getting reimbursed for some of our COVID-related services, and we'll continue to get reimbursed for our services and needs as we finish out 2020. But there's going to be a program announced tomorrow, publicly by the county, for small businesses. It affects small businesses, I think, with 50 and less employees that generate less than $5 million in revenue, to help them cover COVID-related services or products that they need to purchase in order for their business to function. So great program. It was announced to the mayors earlier this afternoon. It's going to go public tomorrow. I think the the director is going to be running a press conference tomorrow morning and announcing publicly. It's going to be on the county website. So there's small businesses out there that are incurring costs in order to open their businesses and run them, keep it safe for their employees, keep it safe for their customers, and incur additional expenses. This could be a great resource for you as long as you qualify, and it's putting the money to good use to help businesses in Monmouth County get back on their feet and start generating profits as they were pre-COVID. That is it for tonight. Unless I missed anything, we can roll right to public comment.
Okay, first up is Eileen Wang.
So public comment is state your name and address, please, and you are you follow the township ordinance for the 3 minutes for your comments.
Hi, my name is Eileen Huang, 10 Huntley Road. I started the petition to remove the blue line. So you're asking us, and the Holmdel High School Politics Club is asking us to objectively address systemic racism in our town. So I'm here to comment on what I see as an overfunding of the Holmdel Police Department. So at $6 million, nearly 25% of the entire township budget goes toward the salaries of the PD, officers, and staff. Given that we employ 43 individuals, this averages out to $140,000 per person. We believe this is an egregious overspending on a category that does not directly translate into a better, safer Holmdel, as Holmdel's crime rate is ridiculously low. For context, the U.S. Army pays its employees an average of $60,000 annually, which is much lower than what police are paid. We see this as an area in which we can recover a significant amount of dollars, especially given the effects of COVID-19 on the economy. Furthermore, there are different areas where a slight reduction in the salaries of officers can translate to huge impact. For instance, our first aid squad only is entirely volunteer and donation based, and our fire department is only getting $25,000 for salaries. And clearly there are a lot of issues with the fire department, which you have touched on, and it's incredible to me that Holmdel, with all its wealth, does not have a functioning fire department to this day. And also, when COVID first hit, there was no PPE for doctors, and teachers who are grossly underpaid are being forced to make their own PPE for the fall semester when schools are forced to reopen. We call on the committee to revise its contract with the NJ State Police Benevolence Association to reduce the salaries of Holmdel PD by at least 15%. We also call on the committee to make sure it does not give any raises to patrol officers in the upcoming fiscal year. And it does not make any sense to give to public servants raises when we are in the middle of a pandemic and unemployment is at a record high. So defunding the police is not about punishing them, but being smarter about how we use our money to fund initiatives that make this town a better place. I also personally want to hear if Mayor Bontempo supports Black Lives Matter and thus the removal of the blue line. And like I said, I'm giving you an objective history. Blue Lives Matter has always been a racist movement. The thin blue line originated with William Parker, who was a notorious racist LAPD officer who called Black Americans monkeys. And it's a mistake to say that the removal of the blue line is purely performative because the people are making this demand, so it's a legitimate one. And addressing systemic racism quite literally goes hand in hand with removing symbols that racist institutions systematically prop up and defend, as we've seen with the last meeting and all the people who said really racist things during it, defend until their dying breath. It is hypocritical to leave up racist symbols and quote unquote be addressing systemic racism in our town. We must make these material changes in our landscape too. Thank you. And I want to hear from Mayor Bontempo.
So a couple of things. As long as I'm here, there's not going to be a discussion on defunding the police department. The police department play an extremely vital role in all public safety for the town. We have a volunteer first aid squad because they choose to run a volunteer first aid squad. There are options available. Their membership and their leadership choose to. We have a great fire department that is growing and expanding as the town has grown over the last 10 to 15 years. The police are first on the scene when somebody calls 911 for anything from a heart attack to my house is on fire. So probably we don't do a good job marketing everything our police do every single day, helping our residents out, but I get more emails complimenting our police than I've seen with pretty much any other group of any involvement I've ever had in the public safety space. So what people don't realize is the police are 24/7, right? When they never are off shift, there's always shifts running. Their cars are always running. The police are always on the field. And these guys are the first that put themselves in harm's way no matter what. They don't get to choose who they go to or what calls they can selectively pick, whether it's a armed robbery in progress or a house on fire or someone that has chest pains, a heart attack, or just got shot, because we get everything at Holmdel. These guys are there. And from my perspective, there isn't a better police force in the state of New Jersey. These guys are amazing. And I fully support them. I've always supported them. And the support that came in 2016 when I was here was from the county requesting that the towns in the county adopt the blue line in support of what Dr. Pascucci said in the last meeting was police officers in Dallas that were ambushed in a call where they were going to save someone's life, they thought. So there's no more intention. Listen, I did research too on the blue line. Now it started with the red line. I get it, right? There is no racist intent of the line. There never was. The line isn't going anywhere as long as I'm around. Isn't going anywhere. So you can quit your grandstanding and coming to every meeting and talking about how everyone's a racist. There's nobody racist here. I deal with all these people every single day. Everybody has the best intentioned heart, from the people that in town hall to township committee to the police officers. These guys are extremely intelligent and brave individuals. 100% got their back. There's never going to be a discussion, as long as I'm around, on defunding the police. In fact, I'm looking to grow the police because I like having a low crime rate in our town. I like making sure that people are safe. When they leave the house, they can let their kids or their wives or whoever go out in the street and not be fearful that something's going to happen to them. That's why people move here. They like the open space, they like the safety of our town. We help a lot of other towns out as well with mutual aid and support. Our guys are the best. Wendy, anybody else?
Yes, we have Kason, K-A-S-O-N.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Certainly. Kason Little. I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey, and I'm calling on behalf of our statewide justice chapter. Good evening. First, I wasn't really honestly prepared to speak, but I did feel the strong need to speak tonight, as I did at the last meeting. Number one, let's just be very, very clear. Let me be very clear and let me be honest, okay? The blue line that are on these streets in this, that are displaying in our state right now and are displaying in our country, it is a symbol of hate. Do not sit there publicly and say that, number one, you don't see an issue with it. Number two, that there's not racism within your police force, within your town. This is a broad systemic issue that is widely occurring and widely going on throughout this country. And your town plays a big part in it. My town plays a big part in it. So don't sit there and be reactive. Sit there and be proactive. Stand up for your community. Stand up for justice. Admit that you have a problem to racism. Admit that you have a problem to police brutality. Admit that you have a problem to discrimination in your town. Own it and then do something better and be proactive. You have that power to do that as city officials. Your silence and your complacency and your incompetence are loud enough, and we hear you, we see you, and we will not forget how you are leading your town. The state sees you, and we see how very little of proactive you are being. And we see how you are acknowledging these symbols of hate and not doing anything about it. Please know that you will be in the history books to come. You can make those facial expressions. I see you. You don't see me. It's disgusting. I can cut you. You can cut me. You know what happened? What color will that blood be? Red. It will not be orange. It will not be blue. It will not be different from me or you. We will all bleed the same color blood inside. But we know that it's a problem with this country. And we know that it's a problem with Holmdel. I cannot even count the number of times that I personally drove through Holmdel and I personally got stopped just because I looked suspicious. As a Black man. So don't go there when you say that you don't have a problem with the police department, because I have the records to prove it. It's offensive and it's distasteful to others, and especially distasteful to Black people. And you owe the community an apology for that. And not only do you owe them an apology, but to remedy that, you need to sponsor and implement and create legislation in place that can at least help to begin remedy this tragedy, this ongoing struggle that Black people in this country face. So I hope that you take your words into account and you include the community, you hear the community, but you have a heart generated by love and care, and do the right thing. Do the right thing for the people's sake.
Timer.
Okay. Next is Sarah F.
Just a reminder for those in queue, as I mentioned earlier, there's a 3-minute time limit on public comments as set forth by the township in a resolution that was adopted in a reorganization this past January. So we ask that you stay within the confines of that time, and thank you for your cooperation.
Sarah, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Sarah Faisal, 26 Wild Hedge Lane. Good evening. I would like to address another concern on behalf of those speaking out against the blue line in Holmdel. We believe that Holmdel Township must abstain from accepting funding from police unions. There's evidence of legislators and assembly members of New Jersey accepting money from these unions, which is why we believe it is imperative to bring it up. Police unions have historically and currently been the most vocal group in opposing criminal justice reforms that the U.S. police systems need, including accountability and transparency, excessive use of force, inadequate training, and more. Yet police unions have to be one of the biggest obstacles in the reform. If Holmdel citizens, especially those that support Mayor Bontempo, are quote, all for additional training in de-escalating techniques and other measures such as the newly purchased body cameras, as stated by Mayor Bontempo in his messages regarding Holmdel Police Department, then that means we should all be against receiving funds from the main obstacle in police reform. A study by the University of Oxford in 2018 of the 100 largest American cities found that the extent of protectionists in police contradicts was directly and positively correlated with police violence and other abuses against citizens. This is one of the many cases proving the correlation between police unions and violence by cops. In terms of lack of accountability, police unions and legislators aid in the shielding of public and departmental accountability of cops, meaning that cops have the power of getting away with corruption and brutality with the help of police unions through the combination of collective bargaining agreements, civil service protections, and discrete legislative statutes. Additionally, legislative protections and union contracts have the power of dismantling civilian review boards or external checks on police power, and have done or attempted to do so in New Jersey. In Newark, for example, the police union in fact sued a case in which the city tried to give disciplinary powers to the civilian review board, thus demonstrating abuse of power. I would like to end this concern by saying for those that are attending the meeting and are in support of this line, you must see the problems behind representing a corrupt system. For those of you that are pro-good cops, we want you to understand how the removal of the line is not a rejection of those good cops, but is actually a rejection of the corrupt system that they work for. Our concerns, as you can see, go further than eliminating a racist mark on the road. If this town refuses to have a public acknowledgement towards BLM and also chooses to receive funding from one of the biggest obstacles BLM faces, then that really shows where this town lies in terms of morals. Thank you.
Next, we have Chrissy Gabor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Christiana Gabor and I live at 10 Bordensbrook Way. Although this issue was introduced at the last meeting on July 14th, we haven't heard from the committee what course of action specifically they plan to take regarding the removal of the blue line. I'd first like to touch on some of the remarks made by the committee members of last meeting. First, Committeeman Pascucci, after he so eloquently remarked that, quote, not many people have the gonads, end quote, to speak up on this matter, he stated, quote, all lives matter, Black lives matter. I don't want to put us in compartments, black, white, green with red spots on your ass. I don't care. We are one people, one race, end quote. Committeeman Pascucci, yes, you are right that we are all one people. And when other human beings are being disproportionately murdered because of the color of their skin, the rest of the people must band together against that injustice. By keeping the blue line on our streets, we are supporting the wrong group of people. There is nothing wrong with praising good police officers, but you don't praise someone for doing the bare minimum. You don't praise someone for doing the job that they signed up for. The police chose to put their lives on the line. If there is truly nothing racist about the blue line, then we demand that the town create a separate display showing support for Black Lives Matter. It is entirely inappropriate to support Blue Lives Matter without recognizing Black Lives Matter. Yes, all lives matter, but Black lives are being disproportionately threatened in America right now, and it is up to us to stand on the right side of history. I would now like to comment on Attorney Michael Collins' lack of participation in the last meeting. Seeing as he is a lawyer, I find it mind-boggling to see that he is not fulfilling his duty to uphold the law in Holmdel. As I stated at the last meeting, the blue line, or any line in between the double yellow lines in the middle of the road, is not in compliance with the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Section 3B.01 states, quote, centerline markings shall be the pavement markings used to delineate the separation of traffic lanes and shall be yellow, end quote. The U.S. Department of Transportation released a statement that reads, the use of blue lines as part of centerline markings does not comply with the provisions of the MUTCD. This can put the road user at risk due to misinterpretation of its meaning. So then I ask, why are you ignoring the law? Mr. Collins, isn't it your job to uphold the law? You took an oath as you were being sworn in to faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of office, and this is not what you are doing. You are letting politics and your biases get in the way of the law. I would also like to comment on the alleged remarks of the HHS Politics Club. I am part of this club, and I was never asked for my opinion. I would also like to add that this club is notoriously majority Republican, and this can be confirmed by the advisors. We have made our demands clear, and they have been ignored by our own public servants. You have ignored the law and the state and federal governments. It has been made abundantly clear that you are running a dictatorship in which it is your way or no way at all. We want the blue line removed. If you still choose to ignore the law, we want other displays in support of Black Lives Matter to be posted around the town. It is time you all stop acting in your own biased interest and listen to the pleas of the community. If you can't hear us, you aren't listening. Thank you.
I thought I was pretty clear at the beginning of the first comment. I'm not ignoring the line. The line is not going anywhere. Wendy?
Just real quick, Mayor, if I could just address the legal issues that were raised. The commenters are entitled to, their time to make comments. They're entitled to their own interpretation of legal concerns and the like. My ethical duty is to the Township Committee, and my attorney-client relationship is with the Township Committee. So if I have any legal advice, that would be offered to the Township Committee in an executive session. And my role here is to facilitate a public meeting that complies with state law, which is what we're doing by allowing the public comments that we're hearing tonight.
Good. Next is Stacy Gregg.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Stacy, please state your name and address for the record.
Sure, Stacy Gregg, Rockaway, 40 Sunrise Road, Rockaway Township, Wharton, New Jersey. Tell me when I can begin for my 3 minutes.
You got it.
Reclaim my time. Okay, I'm calling because it's a concern. I'm a resident of New Jersey. I'm very active in many groups. I'm very active in the most recent protests with Black Lives Matter. I wanted to add to all the brilliant, young, fired up people regarding diversity, fairness, and the fact that Black lives do matter in this country. There's a movement going on. There is a lot happening. And Mayor, you sound ignorant. The whole town seems ignorant. The few towns that do have these blue lines in the face of people screaming and telling you, you're hurting me. You are hurting me at the deepest level, my existence as a human being, by saying I don't matter. I cannot take off my skin if I'm a Black person or a person of color. There is no such thing as a blue line. There's a blue shirt. They take it off. Someone ignorantly added it's a 24/7 job. It is not a 24/7 job. When Black officers or officers of color take off their uniforms, they get stopped while driving Black or non-white. So don't buy that. You sound ignorant. It's on the record. Years from now, you're on the wrong side of history. It's if I said, here, I'll give you an example. I had a problem with my child at school. There was a swastika involved. When I tried to explain how offensive it was to me as a human being, I was told, oh, well, in Indian cultures, it's a sign of good luck. It's past that time. Whatever made you make that decision to put that blue line illegally, and I understand the attorney of the town, Mr. Cohn, my maiden name is Cohn. You don't want to tell it in public. You need to tell them what the law is and how bad this is looking in the history books. I was told about a swastika that I shouldn't be offended because it's an Indian symbol, because it was being used in an art class. It hurt me. It hurt my family. And it's not the truth. That may be your truth, but it's not the truth of the people that are seeing it, and they're being wounded day after day. And it's not just your town, it's some other ignorant towns that are doing it as well. And that's where you belong, in the ignorant column. You know better. You know it's a hate symbol. You know that the two men that reenacted George Floyd's murder had the Blue Lives Matter and they had the All Lives Matter signs. They lost their jobs. Now, if you don't do the right thing and answer all these good people's questions tonight in a written form, meet their demands, you know darn well what defund the police means. You know it does not mean what you're trying to sell it as. You know it talks about transparency and everything else. But if you don't meet their demands and you don't act like you're an intelligent person, you're going to lose your job. You're going to get voted out. Please do the right thing.
And that's it.
Yep, time's up. Next, we have Alan Wu. Hi, can you state your name and address, please, for the record?
Hi, I'm Alan Wu of 6 Croydon Court, Holmdel, New Jersey. 2 weeks ago, I delivered a statement firmly opposing the removal of our blue line. Albeit I was speaking a good bit too quickly, I'll make sure not to do that today. Shortly after the last council meeting, Ms. Christiana Gabor good-heartedly contacted me and explained her opposition to the line from a purely legal standpoint in greater depth. After some extensive review of precedent decisions, as well as a reading of Federal Highway Administration regulations, I've come to the conclusion that according to federal street marking regulations, Holmdel cannot have a blue line on our streets. It's simply illegal. Isn't that what all the supporters of our police argue for? The rule of law? Anyways, this does not mean that I oppose the symbolism of the line. There are many alternatives to quite literally making a federal infraction in painting non-regulation colors in our streets. For example, in the past, we've had banners in front of our town hall celebrating our force, most notably on the force's 50th anniversary. I can say with almost complete certainty that not only does a banner not violate any federal guidelines, it is also far more visible. However, despite my support for the police, I must say that some comments from Councilman Mr. Rocco Pascucci did irk me last week. While I disagree that our system is entirely built on racism, as many others here would argue, I find it nuanced to argue that there is not an ounce of racism in any of our government institutions. We should all work to better our society. Acknowledging and correcting wrongs is certainly a way of accomplishing that. I would also like to mention an earlier statement claiming that the Politics Club was notoriously majority Republican, and that also somehow disqualifies their voices as well. I would like to mention that as another fellow member of the club, over this past year, the demographics of the club have changed quite drastically, and I can tell you for sure that because of the diversification of ideas there, the quality of the club has also increased quite a bit. There's a far more engagement and discussion rather than an echo chamber that it used to be. And I would also like to mention that the earlier commenter is also not shown to a meeting for many months and probably hasn't had the opportunity to view the great changes we've seen in the club, especially during these trying times. To end my statement, I would request that everybody here not seek active confrontation with their so-called enemy, as such gets us all of us nowhere. We see it on the national level in Capitol Hill. We see it internationally in global diplomacy. Such harmful discourse should never reach into our quaint and small suburb town of fewer than 17,000 residents. Instead, Just like how Ms. Gabor so kindly and good-naturedly did to me, we should all seek to increase understanding and dialogue and learn from one another. After all, isn't that what our democracy was founded upon? Compromise to settle conflict? Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good evening.
I think you guys, if you were listening to what the deputy mayor said this evening, put a ad hoc committee in place to do just that, right? We have heard the concerns, and it's a issue that probably could take on some other perspectives. So I applaud her for taking on that role and taking the lead on this tonight, and we'll have it on the agenda for our next meeting in August, which is I think it's the right step, and it gives the group a chance to understand what their mission is, and then ascertain what is going on in our community and look to make recommendations to the mayor and committee. So we are doing things. They may not just be what you want, but we are doing things we feel are appropriate for the town. Wendy?
Next, we have Hannah Friedman.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name and address for the record, Hannah.
Hannah Friedman, 6 Ardmore Place, Holmdel. A couple things I want to address. First of all, you can be racist without being intentional or malicious. We've probably all been racist before, and that doesn't make us a capital R racist TM. It just means we've acted in a racist way. I've done it. I'm sure everyone here has done it, and that doesn't necessarily make us bad people. That makes us capable of mistakes. What's important is that we hear from those we've harmed. We recognize that. We apologize. We don't make excuses, and we never do it again. We learn from our mistakes. So you can be racist by accident, without intent, without being malicious, but that doesn't mean that you're not being racist. And when the people impacted by that racism are speaking up and saying, you hurt me, it's so dismissive, and it's gaslighting to respond to them by saying, well, I'm not racist. That's not acknowledging the harm that you personally have inflicted. It's all about this intent versus impact. You can be well-intentioned, but that doesn't mean you haven't impacted people personally. I can agree with the general idea that this line is just symbolic or performative, and removing it isn't actually going to address racism in our community. But I will say it makes me pretty nervous that this is the line in the sand that we're drawing over a stupid line on the road. Literally, that doesn't instill in me any sort of confidence in this town for actually addressing racism in our community, which I would like to bring up an incident. Not only have others shared personally their experiences with being racially profiled by the Holmdel police, but in the Asbury Park Press, I believe, it was published about a Mr. Mickens, a Holmdel resident who was racially profiled back in December. And what happened is he was approached by a cop who was not wearing his uniform, and who did not identify himself as a cop. So obviously he was very nervous and scared when he kind of accosted him with questions and blinded him with a flashlight. So the review said that this cop did not violate any policies. I was interested what those policies were. I went to the Holmdel Police website, and the policies there are very scarce. So I would love to, if it's not you guys, you can tell me where to find this, but love some transparency on what the Holmdel Police policies are, how maybe we can help influence them to make sure they are reflecting the community values we would all like them to have. Additionally, it's been talked about wanting to purchase more body cameras, but that wouldn't seem to be a solution in this instance, since the cop was not wearing his uniform and therefore presumably would not be wearing the body camera. So I want to know what policies were not violated there. Do our cops need to identify themselves to residents? And additionally, what is the department doing to make sure a Holmdel resident, or rather anyone, is never made to feel this way again, not only by this cop, but anyone? I'm not saying that cop was necessarily, again, a capital R racist, but he did make this Black resident feel threatened for his life, and with good reason when you look around at what's happening in our country. Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Jay Campus. Hi, please state your name and address for the record. Hello?
I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Don Dudley. I'm at 100 Creek Myrtle Drive. And just a couple of comments. First of all, I would like to say, look at the profile of our board members, our township board members. I do not see racism. And I don't think anybody there is there because they were mandated to be there. Second, other than what I just heard from the last speaker, and there may be some, but I haven't heard of any. Do we have any complaints, charges, et cetera, against our police department or any municipal employees of racism or anything like that? If we don't, or if they're minor and if they're taken care of, why are we making an issue where no issue exists? Look at the statistics. I don't have them in front of me. Trust me, next time I come on, I will. But I'd be interested to know how many people have lost lives in the custody of police departments, both black and white, and any other race for that matter. I'd be interested to know what that is. Next, why are we allowing, and you don't have to answer this obviously, but I have a hard time understanding why we allow people from outside our municipality come in with prepared statements and all kinds of studies. It makes me wonder what the motive is of these people and where they come from and why they're here doing this. It makes me think there's some sort of outside influence. As of Black Lives Matter graffiti, the woman mentioned about the blue line being illegal. I seem to see, and I could be wrong, and I apologize if I am, but I seem to see Black Lives Matter things on the news, written on all kinds of graffiti and in places where I'm sure that's equally as illegal. And finally, we should talk about things. These seem, and I don't disagree with what happened and with the black gentleman who lost his life. I don't disagree with that. I think it's terrible, and I think it should not exist. But it seems that the way this is being handled by people in the press and politically speaking, that people are doing this and it's driving us apart, not bringing us together. Whether you believe in God or not, I think we all need to believe, at least in the philosophy, that we all are God's children in the end, and all lives matter, not just Black Lives Matter, and all lives matter equally. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
I am with Mr. Dudley. I wasn't able to have a Zoom capability, and I was wondering if I can have just a minute to say something. My name is Nancy Cannon, and I'm sitting with him at 100 Crepe Myrtle Drive.
Is that okay, Wendy?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. All I want to say is that I want to reiterate that you cannot govern, you cannot rule, you cannot make people not racist, okay? It's something that's taught in the home. I have been very proud to live in Holmdel because, as Mr. Dudley said, if you look at the faces of our township committee, there is diversity. That wasn't mandated. That was voted by a community that doesn't see differences, okay? I'd like to commend the mayor on not being a coward, like many of the mayors and governors of our states have been cowards, okay? If you see hate in a blue line, that's your problem. I don't see hate, okay? If you have a cold, it doesn't mean I have a cold, and we all have to go to the doctor. To broad brush people with all the same problem is wrong. Many of these people talk about bullying. They have been bullies on this call, saying, I'm watching you, you better. That's not the approach to bring us together, okay? This is gotten out of hand, totally out of hand. I have been very proud to live in Holmdel for the years that I have, because I have seen every walk of life live here and live comfortably together. I'd also like to say those that don't support the blue line, okay, start a list of your telephone numbers, and those that want to redirect funding from the police department, start a list of your phone numbers so the Holmdel police do not have to answer your calls. The leftover money for not going to your house can be used for whatever you would like it to fund. I always said that it was a pleasure living in Holmdel because the police are like somebody who comes to take the cat out of the tree. I lived in New York City. I watched my car getting stolen and calling the cops incessantly. And I had to rectify it myself because no cop could come. I feel bad for any child living in a high crime area to know that a cop will not come to help them. That is a travesty. And people who don't have the knowledge and the depth to understand what they're suggesting, because they're hurting just the people they state that they're trying to help. Okay? The worst racist is the person who says they're not one or says everybody else is one. So some of the worst racists are people in the movements that are marching in the streets. Shame on them, because my Black friends, my minority friends are petrified of what they're doing to them. Remember, what we should be doing is thinking about what we all have in common. That is, we all want to have safety for our family. We all want opportunity for our family. We all want to live in peace. This is not what's coming out of what's happening today.
Thank you.
Try nice things, not what's happening today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I just, I wanted to let the public know because it came up. All of the non-tactical police policies are available to the public on our website. That was an initiative that we took this year. If you go to the police page of our website, there's a How Do I tab, and then there's a View tab, and under there it says Department Policies, and all of the non-tactical policies are up there. And if you go into the About the Police, there's a Policies and Reports, and those reports are the annual internal affairs summary reports, use of force reports, police pursuit reports. That's all on our website and available. Just wanted to make sure that the public was aware.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Next, we have Felicia Simmons. Hi, Felicia. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Felicia Simmons. I am from the wonderful city of Asbury Park in Monmouth County, New Jersey. I am the president of National Action Network and the lead organizer for the largest BLM rally in New Jersey. And I am a national organizer and a lifelong Monmouth County resident. I listened to your meeting today. It was very interesting. And I listened to your comments. And I'm also very interested in the fact that you know the history of Monmouth County, the deep-seated racism, the New Jersey seat of the Ku Klux Klan and other movements throughout Monmouth County. As being a lifelong resident of Monmouth County, I lived in Bradley Beach as a child to watch skinheads walk up and down the street. I know history throughout Holmdel, Township, other areas throughout Monmouth County, Long Branch, New Jersey, being the home of the largest Ku Klux Klan rally ever, and Ocean Grove. Monmouth County has had a long, deep-seated history of hate and long, deep-seated history of racism and segregation. So in this history, others might see the line and see a blue line and say, I support my police officers. Well, I also support great police officers, but the system is broken. And you might not see it because it doesn't affect you, but I see it because it affects me. It affects people that look like me, but eventually it will affect you because the system is corrupt. And the pain of which you walk down the street and you have fear when someone walks up to you, a police officer that's supposed to protect and serve, that stops and asks you, where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you here? Right? That is it seems normal, but it's not normal when it happens to you every day. It is not normal when you have to be completely disarmed. You have to remember not to hold your hands up or to make a gesture with your hands or in the midst of your crisis when you're spinning around in deep-seated fear, not to act threatening because you might not come out of it. These are things that you do not have to understand, and you do not have to feel, and you do not have to explain to a child. You do not have to explain to your child that just got your license to remember not to go through this town, right? To remember, if you go through the town, please, please keep your hand on the steering wheel to make sure that they do not get threatened by you. See, when they're asking you, and I am extremely proud of these young people, how organized, how well spoken, and you should be extremely proud of these young people, how they come together, how they're saying, you know what, the hate or the unbiasedness, right, of their hearts won't spill onto me, that they'll raise their kids and their future in a better way.
Felicia, thank you. Thank you for your comments, Felicia.
Thank you.
Next, we have James Yanello. Hi, Mr. Yanello. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, James Yanello, 18 Ladwood Drive, Holmdel, New Jersey. As I said on the last meeting, I can appreciate some of the eloquent comments from some of the speakers. I very much appreciate the woman who just spoke from Asbury. And I am a white male. I can't fully appreciate how it feels to be a black male or a black woman when they see the blue line. As I suggested at the last meeting or on the last meeting, I think we should consider some sort of BLM symbol, movement, emblem at town hall. I think that would be nice. I think it could go with the blue line. I think that would be a great idea. But I have to go back to my common problem with this, and this is when the movement hit Holmdel weeks ago, if not months ago, the way time flies. It's the demeanor of some of these people. We demand, we heard that again tonight, we demand, we're watching you. Someone else cited that. The whole town seems ignorant. That was a statement tonight. And the anger of the woman who authored that protest petition just is astounding to me. And not only now does she not like the blue line, she wants to defund the police. And several weeks ago, we heard from people that wanted to disarm the resource officers in the school. So I say it again to these people who, most of which have their hearts in mind and in line with what's good here. You need a better approach. You need a better focus. You need to stop demanding and bringing in the outside. As much as I respected the woman from Asbury, bringing in people from all around the country, some of which obviously on the last meeting spewed out some incredible profanities. It's the signs of organized movements from outside of this area infiltrating with what sounds like tear sheets they're handed to or emailed is not the way to do it. Let's have this meeting with this student group. Let's sit down with the officers. Let's possibly put up a monument for Black Lives Matter, and let's move on. Thank you.
Next, we have R Change.
Yes, my name is, hello. Hi, my name is Arcane Jantuan. I'm representing the New Jersey Clergy Coalition for Justice. We're a statewide organization based with faith leaders who support issues of justice. I'm here just to support some of the community leaders, especially young people that we've been talking about, who are trying to make change in their community, who want to see the blue line removed from their town. I think we continue to tell young people to step up, and when they step up, sometimes we push them down. And so this is a new era, it's 2020, and the winds are blowing and people are calling for equity, people are calling for justice, and more important, the Black Lives Matter movement is calling for a clear understanding of the pain that Black people have been going through for many years. And the more you look into the pains of the Black community, you will also see the injustices throughout the community. I've heard the mayor very clearly talk and support blindly the police department. And I think that's based as on his preference, but him and also the entire council has to realize that their job is not to push their own individual agenda, but it's also to push the agenda of the community. And so when you look at the use of force report, 349% more Black people are 349% more likely to have force used on them than a white person. But when you look deeply into the report, it actually shows that there's even more problematic issue with this, with a town like Holmdel. You still have a large group of people who are having uses of force on them. And so my thing is to the mayor, if you want to stand blindly behind the police department, I think it's important that you put their information out there. Put the last 10 years of the arrests that of officers done, put the last 10 years of the stops, put the last 10 years of the use of force, put the last 10 years of the misconduct and the disciplinary actions that's been taken place on officers, put the last 10 years of lawsuits and settlement. And then we can have a conversation of if this police department is a great police department. Let's not have a conversation about our opinions and our slanted views, but let's stick with the facts. Right now, you have 5 officers: Michael Hughes, Michael Dowhin, Brian Keith, Christopher Cheney, and Michael Moore, who are the top 5 officers are using force. The question is, has there been a written response to the use of force report that wasn't given, but it was actually adopted through the process of the media? And I want to just say this from a faith perspective. I know sometimes people are going to bunker down and continue to hold their position, but at the end of the day, all of you are going to be in the history reports. The same when we looked at John Lewis died, they went back and the state troopers had to apologize. The public officials had to apologize because they did not listen. They called Black people irresponsible, and they basically didn't listen to the voices that were calling out. And today they're apologizing. In the future, in just a couple of years, your grandkids and their grandkids are going to be calling out. And so be on the right side of justice.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
So just maybe some people don't have the insight on Holmdel because they're calling from outside. So action was taken by the Board of Ed 3 years ago, 2018-ish, beginning of 2018, for the police department to hire armed officers and put them in our schools to protect the children. So you know, when you talk about, you know, the way the majority of this town feels about the police department, they're not asking for less, they're asking for more, as evidenced by what was implemented about 3 years ago. So a little different than maybe some other towns, and safety was a priority, and that's why people moved here, and that's why that program, I believe, was put into place. Go ahead, Wendy.
Next, we have Francine Campus.
Hi, my name is Francine Campus. I live at 2 Country Squire Lane. I've lived in Holmdel for over 20 years. And I'm going to tell you, I am so dismayed at what I've heard in the last 2 meetings. I am happy to hear that young people are getting involved, but what I'm hearing, what they're talking against, they're spewing through their mouths. I've heard them call the township committee incompetent, not doing anything. Even tonight, after Deputy Mayor Kathy Weber announced that they're going to start a new ad hoc committee to look into things, they're still saying that they're doing nothing. And to put hate on a blue line, I mean, to tell you the truth, I rode up and down Crawford's Corner all the time. I had no idea what the blue line was all about, whether it meant I couldn't cross the line differently or anything. I never saw hate there. Now, the hate that's being labeled on a blue line is terrible. I implore these young people to take their passion and their concern and use it positively, not be so caught up in a blue line. I ask them, like, they come across bullying you people, we're watching, we want to know what you're going to do. I ask them to write down what positively they have done to improve Black lives in this country. Have they like, I mean, I used, you know, it's just appalling to hear them come and read reports that as Jay said, I seem to think that they're coming from outside prodding. And why bring hate and division into a town that I never saw this town that way? One of the people, she was a very good speaker, but she brought up about history of Monmouth County. I wasn't even here in Monmouth County. I'm from New York. I came from New York, so to hear the history has nothing to do with me who's living here. And my first encounter with the police department when I moved here was my alarm went off. Those policemen came, they came into my house, they searched it, they comforted me, they made me feel at ease. They rescued a cat that was crying in my backyard. They came for the smallest thing. I mean, I'm the biggest one that calls the police at the drop of a pin. I don't like a car across the street that's been sitting there for too long. They'll come and very nicely put me at ease. I come from New York, and as one other speaker said, you can't get that kind of service in New York and some of these biggest cities. And let's not, I applaud Mayor Bontempo are taking a stand. And these young people have to understand, if somebody's not agreeing with you, you have to be tolerant to the other side as well. You cannot get mad and call people names because they're not agreeing with you. So I ask, instead of creating hate in this community and divisiveness, which I never saw when I moved here, and I brought my kids up here and I never saw anything like that, please don't promote it. Use your positiveness to do something good for this town and not bring hate here. Thank you.
Next, we have Arjun.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Arjun Menon. I live at 43 Windswept Road in Holmdel. Okay, so police unions fight to keep misconduct records confidential, shielded from public view. Amidst the passionate outcry for justice spurred on by George Floyd's death, USA Today was able to amass 85,000 records of police misconduct investigations from over the last decade, and they started releasing them to the public. 85,000 is just under 10% of the total cops in the US. Out of these 85,000 cops, nearly half were decertified and many others were punished. Additionally, these records were obtained from only 4% of local police departments in the country. And we can easily run the numbers here and identify two distinct problems. First is that there's an alarming amount of police misconduct in this country, which either means that we hired good cops who turn bad or we hire bad cops. Both imply a systemic issue in our policing, either in the recruitment process or in the toxic culture that festers in many of these departments, turning our good cops bad. I would contend that both issues prevail. Secondly, these 85,000 records are coming from 4% of all police departments in the country. So the other 96% of the country's police departments. Why are we not getting this information? Let me paint a picture for you. 23 states have confidential records, New Jersey included. This means the public doesn't have access to police misconduct records, nor are they able to view the contents of internal investigations. Now, a police department investigating itself behind closed doors, where is the oversight here? I mean, that sounds like a system devoid of checks and balances. 15 other states have limited availability of police records, meaning they rarely make records available to the public, but only records of severe discipline like a suspension or termination. If it is declared that an officer is not guilty of wrongdoing, the public will never get to see the justification. As much as you can believe in the good faith of these police departments, the complete lack of accountability, this safety net for unlawful conduct can only lead to corruption. As Holmdel is located in New Jersey, a state with confidential records, as I've said, the public is blind to the police misconduct that goes on in this town. Many of you, and I know Mayor Bontempo and Rocco, would like to believe that there's no racial profiling in Holmdel. All the people I work with don't have a racist bone in their body, right? No racist cops in Holmdel. But I'd like to leave you with a few items. In December, somebody's mentioned it. A longtime Black resident of Holmdel was racially profiled outside his own house by a police officer as a robber. Without even identifying himself as an officer, he used aggressive language, foul language, and threatened him with a taser. Although the man was in genuine fear for his life, Holmdel Police Department investigated the cop and found no wrongdoing. But of course, they didn't publish the contents of the investigation for public viewing. According to NJ.com's force report, Black populations are 349% more likely to have force used on them than white populations by Holmdel police officers. And third, under LA and NYPD guidelines, over 1/3 of our officers would have been flagged for review of misconduct by now. Holmdel has a problem with its police department, and I urge you, please don't be ignorant of it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just interject, I just want to make one kind of global point to a lot of the different comments that are being made. Many of them are critiques about different policies at both the federal and the state level. Obviously, as a municipality, we operate under the strictures of federal and state law, and a lot of these issues are bigger federal issues. Some of them involve guidelines issued by the Attorney General. And in all those cases, the town obviously complies with what the state requires. But the discretion is really not at the township level, and it's more so at the state and the federal level, and where those decisions are made and where these concerns relate to.
Yeah, if I could piggyback on that, Counselor, whenever we hire a new officer, they spend, I believe it's, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 months in training at the county police academy, correct?
Yeah, it's about 6 months.
Yeah, so about 6 months. They go to the Monmouth County Police Academy where they go through training on policies, procedures. So what the counselor said was that the town does not have, the policies that we follow are dictated to us by some state and some federal. And obviously our officers go with the county training. So there may be opportunities for people who want to make changes to go to the officials who actually can impact change on policies and procedures for officers, but that's probably at the county, state, or federal levels.
Next, we have Michael Kravitz. Allowed to talk is not available because Michael is using an older version of Zoom. So Michael, you would have to call in, and the call-in number, which I did try and it does work, is 312-626-6799. The webinar ID is 859-6190-2649. And the passcode is 876475. And it can also be found on our website. Next,
you need to press *9 in order to raise your hand.
Thank you. Next, we have Ryan Lewis.
Hi, can you hear me?
Please state your name. Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Ryan Lewis. I'm calling from Somerville, New Jersey. Please let me know when I can go.
Go ahead.
I just would like to say that I am so disgusted by this council and by this town. Excuse me, I'm battling COVID right now, but I would also like to say that you guys are a bunch of racist motherfuckers. You are pieces of shit.
Done. Shut them out.
This is ridiculous.
So let me make a statement. Any foul language, you're going to be cut and you're not going to be allowed back in.
Yep. Okay, next we have Sarika.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm using my mom's computer.
Hi, please state your name and address.
My name's Karan Menon. I'm from 43 Windswept Road. I was not really going to talk. I just wanted to point out that multiple people have asked the mayor to say where he stands on Black Lives Matter, and he's dodged the question multiple times. He's brought up defunding the police as a way to talk about something and then not address that question. So I just think it would be interesting if you could say where you stand on Black Lives Matter. Aside from defunding the police, do you stand with the Black Lives Matter movement? Greg Bontempo.
Is he done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you for your comment.
Next, we have Rachel. Hi, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Rachel Scheinbar. I was a resident of Holmdel for over 10 years, and now I'm living in Matawan. My question was also the same. I would like to know if Mayor Bontempo believes that Black Lives Matter, and if so, if the town would be willing to put up some sort of symbol proving to everyone that we are fully embrace Black people and Black citizens and believe that their lives matter just as much as anyone else's. So I would like to know if the mayor believes that, but evidently he doesn't want to admit that Black humans are humans. Thank you.
Yes. So if I'm resorting to respond to such a a question, it's unequivocally yes. It was pretty clear on the newsletter that was sent out probably around a month ago. We sent it out. That
Or a month ago.
yeah, a month or so ago. I approved everything that was in that letter. There was I thought a very well written letter from our police department on the tragedy of George Floyd's death. It was beyond disgusting. About any human being should be treated that way. Black, white, doesn't matter, right? I don't really see color, right? If you look at the complexion of this township committee, I work with everybody here. I don't see color, right? I just work with people who are very smart, very talented individuals and can do the job that they need to do to participate in township committee business. So I don't know what you're trying to get at to, get the mayor to say something. I am not in any way concerned about what we're doing to try to improve relations as we adopted tonight for forming of a committee. Because are we perfect? Probably not. Never said we were. I'll repeat again that in 2016, the line was done in response to a request from Monmouth County. No one's gone back I haven't heard a comment yet since, hey, we've gone back to the county and talked to them about why they're sending letters out to all the towns telling them to put blue lines up. Holmdel responded in support of the police globally and the horrific ambush of the 5 officers killed in Dallas. I was here. I was involved. I know when I was at the memorial service, the vigil that they held at the police academy in Freehold shortly after the officers were tragically killed, right? And then this was subsequent to that. So I've seen the history, not opposed to it. It was unanimously approved by all the members of the Township Committee in 2016, and hence, probably installed shortly thereafter. Maybe that answers your question, maybe it doesn't, but yes, I put that in that newsletter because I wanted people to know that what happened was horrific. Are there all good police officers? Probably not, as evidenced by what happened, but, and they have to be dealt with, just like any other criminal needs to be dealt with whatever punishment they deserve for the actions that they took. But we don't stand for racism. I don't think myself, speak for the deputy mayor and Community Man Santana, that we are completely open and willing to listen to what people say and see what recommendations come out to how we can make this community better going forward. Can't go backwards. We certainly make a positive change going forward. And that's what the intent of the deputy mayor's action was tonight, to see what can we do going forward. I'm not moving backwards, I'm moving forward. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, we have Michael Kravitz. No?
I believe he already spoke. No?
Couldn't
No.
speak because of
He
this.
couldn't speak, yeah. Okay. Hi, Michael. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Michael Kravitz from 24 Winchester Lane. I would like to start off by thanking the committee, especially Prakash Santana, for reading my message before and hosting these meetings. I think it's important as citizens of Holmdel to, talk and make sure we address both sides of this issue. We should all address the issue of systemic racism and police brutality, while at the same time showing support for our police officers, at least the ones that help protect the community. Recently, Committeeman Santana asked me and my club, I'm the president of the Holmdel High School Politics Club, to come up with some kind of solution, at least for Holmdel, to unite our citizens in a solution that kind of tackles both sides of this issue. So we thought about it and we came up with this thing. It's called the Mayor's Pledge, which was written by the Obama administration. It's a four-part idea, this message that the mayor says. Many towns in New Jersey have signed it already, including Metuchen and Bloomfield. So it's four parts. The first part is review your police use of force, engage your community members, report findings, and reform your community. And I think these four categories, most people can agree upon as something that needs to be addressed to finally combat this systemic racism and police brutality problem that we have, while at the same time showing our support for the Holmdel police. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Wendy?
Mayor, there are no new hands up.
Good. Any, I'll close public comment. Any final comments from the TC members? Prakash, if you want to speak, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I do, but there's a new hand up. That's why I thought I'll point out. Wendy. Annabelle?
Hi, yes, I'm so sorry. I'd accidentally lowered my hand earlier, so I just raised it again. I apologize for that. My name is Annabelle Winchell. I'm a resident of Keyport. I live at 220 Division Street. So I just briefly wanted to add on to things that have already been said. I was present at the last meeting as well, where I heard numerous intelligent, well-researched, and persuasive statements, and I'm quite disappointed to hear the responses to the blue line by committee members tonight. At the start of this meeting, the deputy mayor claimed that she would address this, but then redirected towards the formation of an ad hoc committee. Committee member Santana mentioned that he agreed with the high school students who thought the line should remain so it could still honor the police. At least something was mentioned about systemic racism by committee members, because at least you are acknowledging that it exists, contrary to a statement made by committee member Pascucci last meeting, who claimed that Black people are not disproportionately killed and tortured by the police, which is untrue. Whether you like it or not, whether this is what you've been taught and have learned in the past or not, this blue line is a symbol of racism and it is a symbol of hate. I urge you to reconsider this point of view and not simply dismiss it as you have been and as you are now. I know that the blue line was in response to officers who were killed, but what about for the countless people of color who have been murdered at the hands of officers? Where are the signs of support for those lives? Arguments, facts, and history has been presented to you by multiple people at this meeting and the last meeting. And the fact that Mayor Bontempo said that no one in Holmdel is racist just shows his lack of understanding for how deeply rooted racism is in this country. And lastly, I'm just incredibly disappointed, quite frankly, by Mr. Bontempo's response to this. The fact that you cannot even say the phrase Black Lives Matter and that you didn't even admit that you believe that Black Lives Matter until you were pressed to is quite telling. So that is about all. Oh, and lastly, what you said about not seeing color is pretty much impossible. This colorblind attitude is a huge issue on its own. And the fact that you say you cannot see color really just means it's really basically an excuse to ignore the problem of racism in this country and in Holmdel. All right, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
I guess some people multitask and don't hear everything I said. I did not say, and you can go back to this tape and watch it tomorrow, that nobody in Holmdel is racist. Didn't say that. I don't know everybody in Holmdel, so I would not be able to make that statement. I could say, and no one on the committee that I've interacted with has ever indicated any tone of racism. That's what I can say from my perspective. Not Holmdel, but the people that I interact with. When anybody else?
No new hands, Mayor.
Motion to close public portion. Prakash, I got no volume on you.
Volume?
Got
It's,
it.
yeah.
Yep.
I have a comment to make. So first of all, I heard several people come up here and say that the committee has been silent on this. And I heard Ms. Winchell say that I agreed with the blue line, keeping the blue line. So I just want to lay things out. First of all, I've actively, vociferously supported Black Lives Matter. I do believe that Black Americans are subject to more racism, systemic racism across this country. I've stated it very clearly. I've also purposely, please read this carefully, neither supported keeping the blue line nor have actively opposed it and publicly opposed removing it for a reason. And the reason is this issue is making the town divisive. Now, being divisive, this is a divisive issue, it's very easy to be passionate and take a side. But it's courageous if you can put your passion aside and remain objective and find out what could be the right solution. Let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. I'm a big fan of Abraham Lincoln. Do you know what happened when he tried to become president? Everybody knew, he knew slavery was immoral and they wanted to get rid of slavery, but he knew he couldn't do it. His position was very clear. His position was he wants to contain slavery where it belonged so it would die its natural death. That was his exact statement. He knew he had to be practical. He knew the end goal was to remove slavery. It could take time. It may not be done tomorrow. So for those folks who want to change the blue line, I ask you this. What do you recommend? Getting rid of the blue line and aggravating racism, or removing systemic racism? If your answer is the latter, please understand, sometimes it may take some time. And sometimes it may be good not to be part of this divisive issue and remove yourself and remain objective and come up with a long-term plan. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, anything?
Yeah, I just want to add, as I have previously stated as well, because I note that some of these speakers are at this meeting that haven't been at prior meetings, that I have emphatically stated that I believe that Black Lives Matter, and I am attempting to work through the division in this community. And this community is divided on this issue in no uncertain terms. And so I feel my job as a leader is to bring us together and increase understanding and acceptance so that people will do the right thing. It is not for me to tell people what the right thing is to do. I need to get our community on board and to come together. And that's what I'm trying to do with this Human Relations Committee, which is explicitly charged with coming up with policies, procedures, and programs that will help prevent and eliminate all types of discrimination, starting first and foremost with racism. And I would like to see Holmdel be a model community for how we address that. And a lot of it is because we need to educate ourselves and educate each other and have respectful dialogue and discourse. Without that, we cannot move forward. And I have been called names and I have been sworn at. And I will tell you, that is not appreciated and is not going to move us forward. I would like to work with people who are willing to have thoughtful conversation and really think of ways that we can be constructive. So I thank people who have made a few suggestions tonight. I have suggestions of my own, which I am going to hold because I want to hear what our community comes up with for how we can come together and learn from each other and be better for it. So I welcome everyone who is interested to apply for this committee, and I can assure you we're going to attempt to get diverse representation on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The only thing I have to say is we are trying to somehow in the future get back to live in-person meetings. I don't know when it's going to happen, but hopefully this pandemic eases and we don't get hit with a very difficult wave 2 or wave 3. We are planning for the worst. But, I think sometime in the future, some of our meetings are more effective in person. So as things progress, we'll look to communicate that out to everybody so they know that they can still attend our meetings and they can come in person and see us live. That's all I have for tonight. Guys, thank you. Committee, Sharon, Wendy, guys, thank you for all your help tonight. Long meeting.
We
Appreciate all
need
your
to
hard work.
adjourn, Greg?
We're going to adjourn. Want to make a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Gosh? Second? Good, Wendy.
We can whip him. All in favor?
Good night, guys.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.